Move the scene to the roof area in a building somewhere. The professor next to him also asked, "Principal, are we really going to leave things like this?" Hearing the question, Obel calmly said, "Although it's a bit dangerous, this will be a good opportunity for the students to grow up. Flowers usually bloom the most after the leaves fall. But was it necessary to push them to this extent? This was clearly the most brilliant golden age in the history of Sylvania Academy. This is a class that must be said to be the most special in the academy at this time. This year's students are a generation of rare talents that are unparalleled in the history of the academy. Each student is a genius with unlimited potential, capable of creating miracles if something happens to them. How can we take responsibility?" the professor hurriedly said. And in response to this question, the principal also expressed his hunch. "I felt like someone was warning me. The upcoming challenge will be a fierce storm. Only the most outstanding talents will be able to stand firm. Although it is difficult and dangerous, this will be a challenge for all of them." Principal Obel Forcius with a determined look in his eyes. Back to Ed. After he saw that the person coming was Lucy, he felt a headache. No way. It couldn't be like this. "Do you have any more beef jerky?" This chibi girl looked at him with sparkling eyes. "No more," Ed said, and Lucy heard him. Didn't have any spirit to move her body. Then she said with a bored face she would go find somewhere to take a nap. But Ed immediately held her back. "You can't, Lucy." Just called her. He also thought, the current situation is extremely chaotic. Based on time, Jenica and Lortel must have reached the sewer. I have to go there now to stop them. At the current rate of his grow, it is possible to defeat all monsters in the second half of the story. So ignoring a boss like Professor Glast does not affect the main story because everything is still under control. But here's the thing. If Lucy meets Glast, the bad ending event is triggered. So I can't let Lucy out of my sight. Ed thought and said, "Hey, don't go anywhere. Just follow me." "Why?" she asked him. "Because someone has told me that in the most difficult times, what really strengthens them is the quiet presence of someone nearby. Lucy, you are so strong. With you, I feel secure even though there is no need to do anything or say anything. Just by my side, I feel secure." Ed gritted his teeth, and Lucy now put her nose close to him and smelled to check. "Is there really no dry meat left?" "Don't have dry meat and miserable meat. Please just stay with me until we get out of this sewer." "If you want to go out, I'll take you," the chibi girl said. But because Ed still wants to empty the magic equipment and open the equipment recipe, he can't leave right away. And he said, "I need to deal with some things first." "All right, so I have a request in return," Lucy said with despondent, not being able to go home to sleep at once. Next, Lucy began to roll over and sleep as Ed carried her. They had to return the way they came after retrieving the appropriate artifacts from the spiritual library and finding Jenica and Lortel in the sewer. "We are going to get out of here temporarily," Ed thought in his heart. Not long before he could move, he met a group of monster bats blocking in front of him, and facing these shrimp, Ed gave them an ignition trick. "Make these little monsters turn into barbecue bats immediately." Elemental magic proficiency has increased. Mana resonance proficiency has increased. The sound of the system made Ed awake, and this was the delicacy of level plowing. Back to Lortel. After everyone went their separate ways with Jenica, she was also using her sensing ability to search for Ed. There was a hidden barrier around, she speculated. Her ability to sense magical power is superior to others, and her sharp judgment has been recognized by Professor Glast himself. Unlike Jenica, who's more inclined towards communicating with spirits, Lortel has the talent to sense energy. At this moment, Lortel suddenly realized that she truly wanted to help others. An invisible bond that could not be bought with money was gradually forming. Her heart is once again filled with emotion. It feels just like that day. Is the sound of my heart beating? Then Lortel's face turned red while thinking. Then suddenly the wall in front of her exploded. And then our main character's calm voice rang out. before her surprised expression. "Oh, Lortel, there you are. I've been kidnapped to somewhere." After saying that, he immediately threw all the things he had just stolen for her to hold. "Luckily, you came at the right time, Lortel. Help me hold these scrolls. There are too many for me to hold." What the hell is this? They are all high-level crafting recipes, Lortel thought in surprise. But she quickly got back to the main issue. "More importantly, Senior, aren't you in danger?" "Yeah, it was dangerous, but it was all resolved," Ed explained while turning to look at Lucy, who was still sleeping soundly on his back. But the rich lady at this time also noticed the presence of Chibi Lucy and changed her expression. "This is dangerous, really dangerous. How could she approach her senior like that? So hateful. I can't stand it." Jenica Fellover is a shy person who doesn't dare to do anything, so I tried my best to approach Senior. That night on the way home, I almost burned down the whole forest because I was thinking too much about him and almost dropped the torch. How could Senior calmly stand there and flirt with another girl in front of me? Not knowing that Lortel's anger was boiling up, Ed continued to speak. "Could you hold those crafting scrolls for me? If the store can prepare the materials, I will stop by to get them. If you want to sell anything, just consider it as my way of repaying you for helping me all this time. The price is negotiable." "But Senior," Lortel said loudly while thinking that she had to take this opportunity to push all her opponents away and regain the initiative. But before she could do anything, Ed came closer and said to her sincerely, "Please, Lortel, who else can I ask but you?" "This is too much. You still dare to ask me to do such things at this point," she thought angrily. But Ed's last words kept repeating in her ears, and as if hypnotized, Lortel's body automatically responded. "Orsenia, do you need the bill too?" Saying this, she blamed herself in her heart. "I'm such an idiot. Why can't I control my emotions?" At this moment, suddenly, there was a panic sound coming from the side. Miss Lortel finally found her. "The situation is very serious," the old man said while panting as if he was about to lose his breath. The scene changes to the position of the group led by Taylor. "Everyone must not let their guard down," Taylor warns. But the timid Clebius saw that and was scared to death. "Is it necessary to go deeper here? It seems quite dangerous. Should we go back?" In response to this, the shrewish Elvira immediately stomped her foot and shouted, saying some stupid things again. "Aren't you going to save Isla? I didn't like Isla that much in the first place. So why do we have to risk our lives for that Ed Rothtailor guy?" he shouted miserably. But knowing that Clebius's personality was that of a coward, Taylor also turned back to advise, "I'm sorry, but I must save Isla, so please." Clebius didn't know what to say and could only silently accept. But after hearing that, Ziggs also patted his shoulder and advised him, "You know Isla's a good person. Now that you're here, don't give up halfway, Clebius." On the side, someone in the party pointed forward and said, "Oh my, I sense something strange up ahead." This girl is the self-proclaimed prophet, Adele. Her prophecies are vague, as if she's peeking into the future, but they're often terrifyingly accurate. "I have a feeling the opponent this time will be very strong," she said excitedly and pointed to the gate on the left. But she had barely finished speaking when suddenly the gate exploded. Then a panicked voice also rang out. I don't know. I really don't know. There was no such plan from the beginning. It was just a moment of impulse. Please forgive me," Claire said in panic before foaming at the mouth and passing out. "Are we on the right track? Or have we gone too far to the right?" Jenica muttered. Then she saw the crowd ahead. She smiled and greeted them. "Oh, it's Senior Jenica." Zig smiled back while Taylor and Elvira started to grip their weapons. This feeling is unforgettable. The fear has been ingrained in the subconscious. The mind is paralyzed by the horror, leaving only stray thoughts of fear. "Although we are not sure we can win, we will try our best." The two of them thought to themselves and got into a fighting stance. While behind them, the swordsman Clebius turned around and ran away while Ziggs and Adele did not understand what was happening. As for the big-breasted Jenica, she didn't understand anything either. What's wrong with everyone? Did I do something wrong? Or did I do something too much to Claire? But she suddenly fainted. Zig saw his friend so bloodthirsty. He had to step forward to advise. Taylor, calm down. Get out of the way, even though the chance of winning is slim, but I must save Isla, Taylor shouted. But at this moment, a familiar voice appeared. Stop it. The sudden sound made everyone turn their eyes towards where the sound came from, and this voice belonged to none other than Ed. Seeing the person she liked appear, Jenica quickly ran over to caress and ask Ed, Are you okay? Are you hurt anywhere? When Taylor and Elvira saw him appear, their faces were as black as the bottom of a pot, and they roared, Ed Roth-Taylor. Elvira and I already knew his way of fighting very well, with just a few basic spells and a little archery skills. He once blocked the three of us alone, and now his teammate is Jenica. After the events at Awfulest Hall, he became much stronger. If it was just senior Jenica, maybe we could have overcome her. But now that Ed has arrived, our chances of winning are 0. This battle will be hopeless, Taylor thought bitterly. However, contrary to what he had expected, Ed just gently placed his hand on his shoulder and encouraged him. Go, Taylor. Isla is waiting for you. Go stop Professor Glast. Taylor, it's time for each of us to do what we need to do. You will handle the scenario. As for the variables, I'll take care of them. From now on, my job will be to hunt, Ed thought to himself. At the same time, outside the entrance of the sewer, Golden King Elt appeared here with his mercenaries. The report from a guild employee was like a time bomb that had finally exploded. The one who should have been defeated miserably and had no chance to rise again in the original. The middle boss of Arc 2 Golden King Elt. He failed sooner than expected and in an unexpected way. However, due to the difference from the original, he successfully escaped. Lortel knew that Elt was plotting revenge, but the old fox had already caught her weakness. The Merchant Guild's forces had almost all been mobilized here. I also got quite a few magic crafting recipes that can be more useful than I thought. But if I had to choose one thing, what would be the ultimate thing that would help me survive in this world? If you ask what the best thing is, it must be information about the future. The plan to keep things going according to the original is still the top priority. If Elt is the middle sub-boss of Act 2, he must disappear in this act. Just like in the original, I will go defeat the Golden King Elt. Thinking of this, Ed turned back and said, Hey, Ziggs, just go straight in and you will get there. I will tell you the details after you save Isla. As for Taylor, Ed paused here and thought. In the end, it was the main character boy who had to end this damn scenario. Only Taylor, after learning all the special skills and developing fully, could confront that guy. There was still a lot of work to do in the finale inside the sewer. Later, when the magic tower summoned by Professor Glast casts a shadow over the sky and rains down terrible magic, there will certainly be many casualties, and then countless other difficult challenges await. Challenges that are hard for humans to overcome. I don't think there's any need to give him long-winded encouragement. All right, Taylor, good luck, Ed said softly and then quickly left. And while moving, Lortel also spoke up. The purpose was the highest reward. He definitely targeted the trading guild to cover up the clues because the cheap sale of magic tools and the work at the Triz Hall made him suspect that I was playing tricks. Okay, then let's go to the academy to report on the mercenary infiltration. Ed spoke up to reply to her. Jenica was about to speak up to advise. Wait. Ed didn't wait for her to finish her sentence before interrupting. Sorry, Jenica, but we don't have time. Hearing him say that, the girl also shouted. Again, it would be dangerous for everyone to go there. Are you going to deal with the Golden King Elt? I don't know what happened, but Ed was just kidnapped and just escaped. A few days ago, you fainted from exhaustion. Moreover, this is Lortel's business. To be honest, it has nothing to do with Ed. I don't want to see Ed get hurt anymore. She was right. It wasn't really relevant. But I couldn't say that I had to deal with a big variable like Elt myself to feel safe in front of her. But to capture Golden King Elt, we need Lortel, Jenica, and I have to go together. Just use that excuse to attract the two of them, Ed thought to himself. But at this moment, Lortel also spoke up. Senior Jenica is right. We shouldn't let Senior Ed risk his life for my selfishness. It's best for him to stay put and recover. Amazing two people hate each other like cats and dogs, but now they are getting along so well. Thanks everyone, but I can't sit still right now. Ed thought dejectedly and spoke up. Unfortunately, this was not someone else's business. This slightly misunderstood sentence made Lortel's face gradually turn red, while Jenica fell into a state of blackening. What do you mean, Ed? Not having time to answer the question, the main character hurriedly ran forward. Let's go. There's no time left. Seeing that, the rest of the people also hurriedly ran after. And at this moment, Ed was also troubled, not knowing what to say. Why wasn't it someone else's business? It was always at times like this that I was confused, not knowing how to explain. He gritted his teeth thinking, but luckily for Ed, Jenica had filled in her own brain. I'm not really an outsider, Ed. I'm related to Lortel, and if Lortel loses control of the guild, then Ed will also have trouble distributing magic tools, right? Right. Then you two definitely aren't someone else. Then Jenica made up her own story to help him avoid having to rack his brains to find a reason. Yes, that's right. Both of them weren't outsiders. After he finished speaking, he secretly thought to himself, Jenica is really smart. She can change his words so quickly. She deserves to be a top student, but let's leave that for later. Just like that, the five of them started to quickly walk forward until they saw the stone golems being defeated in front of them. Then they stopped slightly. What a mess. This Taylor guy is brutal to everyone without exception. At a time like this, he's really heartless. Lortel spoke up, and her words also startled Jenica. And Ed now realized who was the one who did everything. No, I didn't do it on purpose. Things just naturally turned out this way. Jenica hurriedly explained, and Lortel took the opportunity to tease. I'm not a cold-blooded and heartless person. Don't misunderstand. Seeing the exit ahead, and the two of them whispering to each other, Ed had to speak up to remind them that the exit was near. Let's talk outside. Now we have to report the arrival of mercenaries to the academy. Lortel spoke up. My carriage and the staff are at the entrance. However, when the group stepped outside, they discovered that the carriage had been completely destroyed. The group under Lortel was also defeated. He got here sooner than expected, Lortel said with a wry smile. At this time, Elt was standing behind the destroyed carriage, waiting for them to come out before speaking. You're good. I taught you how to manage documents. So even if I turn the whole guild upside down, I still won't find any evidence to accuse me. But the human resource management has loopholes. Just a little threat, and they will reveal that I came here. I'm sorry, Miss Lortel. The old man behind stuttered without daring to look Lortel in the eye. Right. In times like this, you should smile. I spent a lot of time teaching you that fake smile. It's a pity that the only evidence is your confession. You're so beautiful, but it's a waste that I have to destroy you by torture to get your confession, Lortel, he said while snapping his fingers. And as if there was a switch, immediately all the people lying below suddenly had their eyes flashing. Then they charged straight at Ed, swinging their swords. But before the blade could touch him, then it was blocked by this Lortel girl using magic. Everyone be careful, she shouted, then turned her eyes to Elt. I had expected that you wouldn't come alone, but I didn't expect that you would dare to bring mercenaries into the academy. You want to compare my strength with the last time at Awfulus Hall. I'm afraid it's very different. This time, it won't be simple. These are the continent's top mercenaries. Except for Lortel, the lives and deaths of the rest unimportant. End it quickly, he said coldly and waved his hand forward on his command. Then the archer dogs behind also started to let go and shoot arrows forward. But once again, these arrows were blocked by Jenica's magic. Then she also summoned a wind spirit to blow all these arrows away. Be careful, Ed. They move and attack very methodically. Ed also thanked Jenica for blocking the arrows for him. Then he also noticed Elt in the distance. When this guy started reaching into his pocket, as if he wanted to take something out, The spirit mage was really annoying, but I told you this time it would be different. After saying that, he also pulled out a piece of paper with a symbol of some kind of jar inside. This is the legendary magic item, Belarus Prejudice. Its effect is to lock all magic power in a nearby range for 10 minutes. Disposable prop worth hundreds of gold coins, Belarus's Prejudice. Similar to the night butterfly flower Elvira used before, but its magic locking effect is much stronger. Although it has the disadvantage of long activation time and is easily detected, its power cannot be denied. The overwhelming force of the formation and the skilled mercenaries make it impossible for me to attack and prevent him from using the tool in a short time. And the most important thing is that we are all magicians, so we will all be locked out of magic. He certainly knows our strength. If we don't act, we will be finished. Elta, the Academy won't leave you alone. How are you going to deal with the consequences? Lortel threatened. However, this Elt guy is already a cornered dog. At least it's better than losing life, right? He said with a laugh. Made Ed start to blame himself a little. He should have foreseen this from the beginning. Just a small butterfly like him flapping its wings was enough to make the whole world go crazy. He understood that better than anyone. Not to mention he is also a middle sub-boss of Act 2. If he were to survive, how chaotic would this world be? Golden King Elt, middle sub-boss of Act 2. The villain should have been overthrown by his own daughter Lortel and kicked off. The stage the one who murdered Lortel's parents. A man who is willing to take advantage of anything to gain glory and power for himself is clearly a brutal man. But I don't hate him at all, because the reason Elt blocked the group's path in such a hateful way is just to survive. Just like me. But I won't give in. I don't want to lie and say that I'm mentally prepared to deal with all the variables I've created. Can scold me for being selfish, but this is my story. Thinking of this, and also used his strongest weapon. Wake up now, Lucy. Hearing the call, this chibi girl also slowly woke up. It was too noisy, the little girl complained. Simultaneously emitted a terrifying magical aura. Then a magical electric current formed around her. Lucy, the slothful, is awakened. Few people know that the last book in the life of the great wizard Glast, Glast Travelogue, was written by him in a simple house. Far from the usual flashy image, completely different. You have natural talent and the blessing of the stars, but that doesn't mean you can stop learning. Always be humble and use your strength for everyone. And be wary of the loneliness creeping into your heart. Overwhelming power always comes with a heartbreaking loneliness. Okay, I'll stop here, but promise me 3 things. Don't kill others, even if it's by accident. Don't let those little hands get stained with blood. And finally, during your time at Sylvania Academy, live a life worthy of a student. Back to the story. The mercenaries that Elt hired were all experienced people. Just looking at the way they moved was enough to understand that they had survived countless battles. Being able to survive until today proves their strength and the survival instinct. That is ingrained in the blood of this group of people. At this moment, that instinct is screaming, "Stop, must stop now." What magic is this? Elt shouted in surprise as she witnessed the magical power erupting from the little girl. Meanwhile, some young mercenaries saw this and gritted their teeth, wondering what kind of magic this was. Then this guy just started to attack Lucy. Its pitiful young soldiers often lack experience and ability to judge situations. Despite her appearance as a mage, Lucy rarely uses magic because only magical power is created from compressing magical power to that limit. Simply pure, unstoppable power. At this moment, the dwarf girl just flicked her fingers and shot out a stream of magic power. Then it made this mercenary feel like he was shot directly by a cannonball. Seeing this scene, Elt's face could no longer maintain the confidence from earlier. There was still not enough time, just a little more time, he muttered, but unfortunately at this time, Lucy also noticed him. The leader is you right. Just need to take you down. While speaking, Lucy started to compress magic power into her fingertips and prepared to snap again. But at that moment, Ed's hand suddenly touched the little girl's shoulder to stop her. All right, let's stop there. Then the ground around everyone started to shake, and as if sensing something, Ed quickly turned back to observe. At that moment, 7 stars lined up in a straight line shining brightly in the night sky. Professor Glast's forbidden magic, a magic that can distort the laws of nature. The magic tower that covered the entire sky was the stage of the final Chapter 2 arc, the final battle. Seeing this scene, Ed's eyes narrowed, thinking that this was a great moment. Taylor must have finished cleaning up the monsters in the sewers by now, and also learned the necessary skills. The teammates were all gathered. Just need a little more time. Taylor can definitely stop Glast. Descent of the Magic Realm was activated exactly as it was in the original, which means the scenario is still going according to plan. Of course, with such an unusually strange magic. Except for me, everyone else would be confused. Even excellent students like Jenica and Lortel couldn't understand what was going on. So definitely no one would be able to figure it out. He thought to himself, but Ed had underestimated Lucy beside him. 10 magic towers each with the task of absorbing a spectral magic. So there is someone who can do the forbidden resurrection magic. The little girl looked blankly towards the newly summoned towers. To explain this, the ending of Act 2 can be seen after completing the level after everything is over. Lucy wakes up from a long sleep and calmly says that, according to the original at this time, Lucy should be taking a nap on the rooftop of Triz Hall. But because he wanted to use Lucy as a strategic card, he woke her up earlier than expected and put her in the main lineup. As a result, when he was cornered, Glast offered Lucy a deal. The object revived by Forbidden's magic is not the Sylvania legend, but it was her master, the great wizard Glocht. And so Lucy became his enemy. At that time, everyone's formation was completely destroyed. That was the bad ending 27. Lucy, the slothful. The last image was just Lucy's cold back leaving the sewer. Act 2's Lucy Merrill is an unbeatable boss. Even though the most veteran gamers have spent hundreds of hours researching, they still can't find a way to defeat Lucy at this point. Variables outside the main script, unexpected situations, all have to rely on me to overcome, and sometimes I suddenly wonder if those variables that some people think can change the ending or not. Speaking of old, while everyone was surprised by the appearance of the tower, the magic item in his hand was also activated. Legendary magic item Belarus Prejudice has the ability to lock magic power for 10 minutes has been activated. At this time, the first target of the item is Lucy, the most dangerous girl in the group. When each of her magical power begins to be sucked into the jar symbol, it was at this moment they could no longer use magic. Elt shouted, and at his command, a mercenary also quickly rushed to attack. On the opposite side, Ed saw that and calmly put his hand forward and used the Windblade skill to send the mercenary flying into the sky. At the same time, Ed was also thinking in his heart whether he could break the predetermined dark ending or not. Although he knew many things in advance, there were still many things beyond his control. The terrifying sealing power of the legendary magic tool also had its limits. It was easier to stop the flood than to extinguish the fire in her heart. Just like that, before Lucy's terrifying amount of magic power, this bottle could not contain it all and exploded in an instant. I'll clean this place up. I have to go where I need to go, Lucy said in a cold voice, different from usual. Turning to Elt's experience was no less than that of a seasoned mercenary, so his survival instinct was telling him that this young mage in front of him was the god of death descending upon the world. Once again, Lucy began to compress her magic power into her fingertips and prepared to snap it. However, before the girl could do that, Ed's voice rang out again. Do you know that if you do that you might die? If you don't want to kill him, then stop, Ed calmly advised her. It was strange to see this person worried about Elt's life and hearing Ed's words. Glock's instructions also began to appear in Lucy's mind. Don't kill anyone, even if it's by accident. Don't let those little hands get stained with the blood of the person she's worried about. Not someone who's about to die like Elt. But it is her. Just like that Lucy took back her power, I understand, she calmly said. Where are you going? Ed asked. Everything is done, I have to go. Don't you regret it? He asked again, and before this question, Lucy began to think for a moment before answering, I don't. After saying that, she also used teleportation magic and disappear immediately. The conversation with Ed Taylor always ended like that, and then Lucy disappeared right before Ed's eyes. What happened next was that the group of people controlled this group of mercenaries and let them go, while Ed also took the opportunity to run to Triz Hall. As for Elt, just leave him to the Elt merchant to handle. Lord Tell will take care of everything properly. Ending the comma with Eltilt is also her responsibility. I must have been too exhausted. Running all the way from there to here, the highest point of Sylvania, made my body ache. Triz Hall, where it all began, where Glast stole the sage's sealed grimoire, and also where Taylor began his rescue of Isla. The academy took care of the injured, and I never thought I would come back here. But in the end, I still had to come here to settle things. My journey back from the script that started in the secret research room ended in this very place in an unexpected way. Where Taylor began is also where his journey ended. One of the buildings that Jenica destroyed was the Glocked building. The scholarship I received this semester is also the Glocked scholarship. Although he lived a simple life, he devoted all his wealth to Sylvania Academy. His mark is everywhere in this academy. So finding Lucy wasn't difficult. I guess Lucy would come here where you can see the whole academy. Because for Lucy, this academy is Glock's relic. Knowing that Ed had arrived, Lucy immediately asked Ed, Do you have any beef jerky left? I told you it was over before. Ed sighed in response while thinking that Lucy was still saying the same familiar words no matter how different she was. After thinking, Ed asked back, What are you doing? Just thinking about old stories with your master, Lucy answered while slapping her hand to the side, signaling him to sit next to her. And this also made the main character feel a bit emotional. It's too high up here. If I fall, I probably won't be able to catch myself. Not paying attention to this, Lucy began to speak her thoughts. Before, when I was with my master, there was indeed too much sadness as well as joy. But since he passed away, I no longer feel such things anymore. Why is that? Ed wondered. Hearing that Lucy paused for a moment, then answered, It's nothing. It's just that it's been so long that things aren't the same anymore. The foolish actions and the joy of being praised by the master are no longer there. Even if I tried to revive him now, I don't know if I can still feel the same closeness as before. Everything that he wanted to say and teach me, the master has already done. Death coming to him is also obvious. I wonder if Master will be angry if I save him. Reviving a great mage who has devoted himself to the peace of the continent with a forbidden technique. I think it will only make him feel ashamed. From the moment I arrived here, I had already decided, she thought. Reviving my master is truly what I want, but that's just my own selfish desire. So are you really okay? Ed said while thinking in his heart whether he wanted it or not. He had no right to stop her actions, but wanted the ending to go in the right direction. I still have to ask Lucy if she wants to change her mind about reviving her master. That is something that can change everything later. What Lucy wants to do may just be due to her mood of missing her teacher. I can't let that happen and let Professor Glast take advantage of her. So I need to keep a close eye on her so I can react accordingly. Hey, Ed, can I borrow your shoulder? Then the little girl started to lean her head on his shoulder. Hearing this, he let Lucy lean on his shoulder while continuing to think. When it comes to forbidden resurrection magic, no one has the passion and determination of Professor Glast. But no matter what, the dead are still dead, and there is no way to change the fact that at some point, people will no longer be in this world. Then, it will cause suffering to the rest. However, it is unavoidable, so we need to accept that pain. Those losses are irreparable, but we will get over it in time. Lucy, I understand your loss. Sitting in front of the magic tower, here the sky is higher and wider. But it looks so beautiful, Ed thought in his heart. Back to the battle between Professor Glast and Taylor's group. Professor Glast has now summoned a giant robot to protect the sacrificial object. Inside its core is Ayla, whose power is being absorbed by it. Act 2. The battle with the machine giant has entered its final stage. Now everyone needs to focus on rescuing Ayla. On the opposite side, Professor Glast began waving his hand forward, controlled the golem to punch out a destructive fist, and created a huge explosion. But luckily, it was Ziggs who rushed forward using his defensive magic to create 2 other giant hands and temporarily stopped the mechanical hand. "Hurry up, Taylor," he shouted back. Taylor also took this opportunity to jump high, then ran straight up the arm of the mechanical golem. Letting her go, Taylor shouted while covering his sword in magic and directly launched a slash at Professor Glast, causing him to be seriously injured. Now near death, he also began to recall old memories. "When I was in school, I was able to study many things. When I read the grimoires, the philosophies from there, I could understand more about many magics. Those things gradually urged my mind." Slowly, the scenery outside the window changed as the snow began to fall. Many students came to me for guidance. Among them, there is a student that I pay a lot of attention to. Young professors often make mistakes and are always afraid and want to correct their mistakes. When I was promoted to the position of head of the magic department, the principal's habit never changed. He always came to my room and drank tea there. But still, I'm the same. Nothing different. Still immersed in my work. I start thinking about sad memories. What I forgot suddenly comes back. Back to the battle. Professor Glast coughed up a large mouthful of blood and then used his magic and pushed Taylor back. And in the process, his sword also broke in half. He started using time magic to reverse life and death while the tip of the sword was still stuck in the professor's body. Time magic reverses life and death. Things that seem to have disappeared have returned to me, he thought to himself. He then used wide area time magic, multi-layered time magic. At this moment, only a stream of light began to erupt from Glast's body. And when this light swept over, everyone immediately fell into a state of stillness as if time had stopped. It sounds like Dr. Stone. Haha. Seeing this, Ziggs quickly used his magic and pushed Taylor away before he himself froze. But thanks to that, Taylor was able to escape the effects of time magic. As for Glast, he was still stuck in his thoughts. Everything then became blurry in my eyes. Darkness was deep in my soul. Lost things make me suffer endlessly. Now everything is almost done, so anyone who stops me must die. I will reverse time, reverse life, and death. As the glass shout rings out, the mechanical golem's mouth also began to cultivate a terrifying energy source. However, at this moment, suddenly its body was covered with countless slashes before it could do anything, causing the robot's body to shatter into pieces. And the person who just made the move was none other than Taylor in his sublimated state. This also surprised Glast. Is that a swordman form? But very quickly, he used time reversal magic to make this golem fully recover. And because of that, the time freezing magic from earlier was also reversed. Glast at this time also shouted loudly, "No one can stop me. Even if I lose my life, I must complete this." While speaking, he also increased the speed of his spell casting. However, at this moment, an ice spell hit him. This is the ice spear magic that Ziggs used right after he escaped from the frozen state. "It's our time," he shouted. The rest of them also used their magic to attack with great vigor. Only the coward Clabius cried and rushed forward. And despite being exhausted from these millions of attacks, Glast was still not afraid at all. How could you possibly defeat me like that? But this calmness did not last long because the mechanical golem was destroyed by Taylor and Ayla was safely rescued by him. And even though he didn't want to, the professor still had to admit his failure. "I failed already," he muttered, then started falling out of the magic tower. He summoned himself. "I miss you so much, Muri," he muttered. At the same time, the teleportation magic was also activated and took him somewhere. The scene changes to a tree not far from the tower area. The teleportation magic has brought Glast to this place. Space-time jump. That is the magic circle of teleportation. Although he was on the verge of death, he was still able to escape. Even though he failed to accomplish what he wanted, He had already predicted everything when he knew this scenario in advance. The harsh reality was that Professor Glast would fail here. Then he looked up and asked, "So why are you here?" "No one is allowed out now," he said, looking straight at Ed. Back to an hour ago, after carefully detaining Elt, Lortel hurriedly returned to Ed's place. The mercenaries had been chased away by Senior Jenica, and Elt was confined to the Merchant Guild. All dangers had been resolved. Senior Ed hurried to the Triz Hall after telling himself to finish his work. Just need to confirm he is safe, thinking that Lortel also started to increase her speed. But before she could reach the Triz Hall, she ran into Ed and Lucy. "Oh, Lortel, you are back." But what caught Lortel's attention more was that Lucy was tugging on his sleeve, making her danger alarm clock spin constantly above her head. At the same time, Assistant Claire woke up and was helping Dorothy out. Seeing them appear, Ed could guess that it seemed like everything in the sewers had ended. But at this moment, both of them screamed in fear because Jenica returned with Tarkin behind him. "Ed, is that magic tower the thing used to cast holy magic?" "Then there's one thing I want to confirm." Although Jenica and the spirits' meetings have recently revolved around Ed, their original purpose was for Jenica and the spirits to work together to protect the Northern Forest. But a few days ago, Tarkin felt magic similar to the magic emitted from that tower in the Northern Forest. Needless to say, a spectral magic was definitely used by someone. However, in the Northern Forest, there was no magic tower. So what was Professor Glast doing there? If it follows the main storyline, nothing happens in the Northern Forest after that. Maybe I don't need to get involved. But even a fake sub-boss like Elt has caused such a huge stir. If a big character like Professor Glast hadn't disappeared, it's unimaginable how much influence he would have had after this storyline. So I wanted to go there to confirm, Ed thought to himself. And that was the reason why they were here now, right in front of Professor Glast. It's curfew time in the dormitory. Glast wondered. The two girls behind him couldn't bear to look at him when they saw his miserable appearance. "What are you doing here?" Glast heard and gently spat out a mouthful of blood and replied, "Looking at the moon. Is it strange?" "No, not strange," Ed replied. But Glast started to mock himself. How strange I found myself so ridiculous. Hearing him say that Ed seemed to have guessed something, he knew in advance that he would fail. That's right, Ed Roththaler. No matter what I did, I would fail. It's just that I was too careless. I didn't expect to be defeated by the students. But even if I go straight, Principal Obel will stop me. Is it because of some old friendship that he didn't stop me from the beginning? Then he started to sigh and continued. It's true that he's not fit to be a principal, but you're a better student than I thought. Different from your usual style. I was too late in discovering your talent. So why did you kidnap me back then? Ed said his question. And Glast also happily replied, "You seem very capable. At first I intended to entice and take advantage of you, but unfortunately, the plan failed beyond my expectations. And when I rushed to catch you again, you escaped. If this lonely death is considered a punishment, it's not too bad compared to the sins I've committed. But 17 years of living with my daughter, I've never felt lonely. 17 years, Ed muttered. Yes, 17 years is both long and short. Ed on the opposite side also sat down in front of him and asked, Professor, you've known Assistant Claire for a long time, right? 4 years as a senior student, 5 years as a teaching assistant. If you stay until the professor retires, it will probably be nearly 17 years of knowing each other. On the way here, I met Claire. She was crying. Glast is the type of guy that everyone hates. He's the most stubborn, conservative old man I have ever met. He always pushes work around, is arrogant, autocratic, likes to preach, and scolds anyone who does something wrong. In general, no one likes him. But he is a true scholar. Claire said as tears started to flow, but she tried to press her lips together to keep from crying out loud. Dorothy beside me also predicted Glast's ending. Her voice trembled as she spoke, even though she didn't know what Glast's plot was. But he was the respected teacher who discovered my talent. However, it cannot be denied that he was wrong to take the lives of his students hostage, and in the end he came to this tragic end with no one by his side at this time. He mocked himself for dying alone, but he was just fooling himself. Come to think of it, Claire, the young girl, had become an assistant professor. Dorothy, the valedictorian of alchemy. They were all people whose talents were once underestimated. Glast always criticizes the inferior people, but he himself constantly seeks and cultivates hidden talents. It was as if he was trying to prove that his daughter was also a valuable person. A long life that ended in loneliness, a teacher, a colleague deeply imprinted in everyone's heart. My crush has been nearsighted for a long time. He can't see clearly without glasses. He admits it himself. Glast spoke after a moment of contemplation. Before summoning the towers, I went to the Soul Library. You've gone through it all, gone through all the high-level crafting recipes, but it's all in vain. What do you mean? Ed wondered, and in response to this question, Professor Glast slowly took out a key from his pocket and gave it to him. Look at you, cleaning up the battlefield you created yourself. Isn't that reaping what you sow? From now on, the Soul Library is yours. Ed, why? Why did you give it to me? He said in a voice filled with confusion. However, Glast did not explain clearly, but only calmly instructed him. Don't you want to take it? The table that Rena is guarding has a secret safe underneath it. When the Academy investigates, just give it to them. And finally, Lucy, sometimes. Having said this, Glast also saw the expression on her face and did not say any more words of advice. You are a smart person, so you will understand in time. What was Lucy's expression at that time? Unfortunately, I didn't see it, Ed thought to himself. And just like that, Glast closed his eyes and passed away. As one could guess from his body lying peacefully under a ginkgo tree, bathed in moonlight, looking peaceful as if in deep sleep, we stood there silently looking at him for a long time. Time passed quickly. The scene changed to the principal's private office. At this time, the vice principal also called Ed up to ask about things. First about Jenica's case, then about occupying Offalis Hall, then even the Sage's Seal grimoire theft this time, and you were all present at the scene. You were really unlucky, Ed Taylor, Professor Dean said in a meaningful voice. He had been interrogating Ed all night. So you don't know why, but you were kidnapped by Professor Glast. Then you managed to escape and seek help, and coincidentally met Taylor's group. Is that all? Dean asked again. Just like what I wrote in the report. Jenica and Lortel only came to help me. So you left Isla locked up and ran away alone? He questioned. Ed also had his own explanation. Isla couldn't move, and because she was injured, she didn't trust me. So I had to do it myself. Not waiting for Ed to finish, Dean interrupted. Enough. Honestly, I still have doubts about you, he said while staring intently at Ed's face, as if trying to discern something. And Ed understood this well, because even though Ed's testimony was reasonable, the series of coincidences that had occurred made suspicion completely normal. Even though you always act innocent and clueless, I have a feeling you know a lot, he said. You overestimate me, Ed replied coldly. Your pretense is just as good, he added. However, both the incident at Offalis Hall and this one, you are the student harmed due to the Academy's negligence, he said, slamming his hand on the table, causing Ed to be a bit startled. That wasn't the report I wrote. What Professor Dean was holding was my report card. Not knowing Ed's thoughts, the professor continued. You have made great efforts to survive, Ed Taylor. That cannot be denied. The Academy wants to compensate you for the hardships you have endured. Just like that, after a continued conversation, Ed was finally allowed to leave. Jenica was already waiting for him outside. Oh, Ed, you're out, she said. Hearing the call, he turned and nodded in response. I'm sorry for always making you worry, Jenica. Are you all right? You look like you've just been through a battle. I was so worried. Worried about what? I'm fine, don't worry, she said, waving her hand dismissively. But at that moment, the wind spirit on her shoulder began whispering something into her little wife's ear. This caused her attitude to change immediately. Ah, right? Actually, I'm not completely fine. Just a bit sore. I think I got injured while saving Ed. Injured? Where exactly are you hurt? He asked worriedly. She began to pretend, oh yes, my back seems to be dislocated. It feels like that. Hearing her say this, Ed's voice began to change. This accident has made me realize a few things. Jenica, you always work hard and endure everything. Like what happened this time? I took that for granted and even caused you to get hurt. Were you impressed by Professor Glast's final moments? He said that regret always comes at the last moment. I truly feel sorry. I only caused trouble for you. You treat me so well, but in the end, you are the one who always suffers. I'm sorry, Jenica. It's because of me. Honestly, it's best if you don't get involved with someone as useless as me, Ed said sincerely, causing the busty girl to become extremely flustered. In the end, with no other choice, she admitted, I'm sorry. I lied to you. Actually, I'm not hurt at all. I'm sorry. I was wrong, she said hurriedly, but quickly. Ed also shared some good news with her. All right. Your dormitory is the Dex building, isn't it, Jenica? Actually, starting next semester, I'll be moving to the Date building, Ed revealed. You're moving there? She asked excitedly, making Ed a bit surprised. I didn't expect you to be this happy. To sum up, everything that happened passed so quickly. Act 2 concluded peacefully, recalling Professor Dean's previous words. From now on, you can leave behind that hard and wandering life and return to being a normal student. You deserve it. I permit you to move into the academy dormitory. The thought of leaving the house he built with his own hands made him feel a bit regretful. Actually, I also wanted to build a fence and plant more vegetables and reinforce the house. What a pity. So this camping life is about to end, he muttered. Just before going inside, something suddenly fell from above, catching his attention. The person was none other than the short girl, Lucy. Just 3 seconds ago, she heard Ed say he was about to leave the house and was so shocked that she fell from the roof to the ground. Is it over? Returning to an earlier time, Lucy was wandering through the forest, thinking, it looks like it's about to rain. The scenery here was not that of Arkan Island. It was the Ramelin mountain range in the Northern Empire. Why am I dreaming of my childhood now? The days of old childhood. The face of Glocked. Why didn't you save me? You had the chance. Why did you pretend not to know? Glock's skull-like face turned back, questioning with an incredibly frightening voice. But unfortunately, it had no effect at all because the short girl was very sharp-witted. She knew well that this was just a nightmare, so she calmly left her dream. Miss Lucy, you're awake? Then let's get ready for school, the cheerful maid said. However, Lucy didn't respond upon hearing this. Immediately used her advanced space magic to teleport straight to Ed's wooden house. I don't know why, but right now I really want to go to the northern forest. A feeling of relief for no apparent reason. Oh, it looks like it's about to rain heavily, she thought to herself before hearing Ed say, so, this camping life is about to end, and immediately fell backwards down. Cats are very unpredictable creatures. They never play according to our wishes. If you want to pet them a bit, that will calm them down. They pretend to be noble and precious creatures, but only when we lose interest and get busy with our own work do they cling to their owners. That's their nature. If you want them to do what you want, it's best not to bother with them. Anyone who wants to befriend a cat just needs to ignore it. Don't show any interest or concern at all. You'll be surprised to see them clinging to you first. This is sometimes even harder than dating. The cheerful voice of the professor echoed, making Ed ponder. In the class on monster ecology, it was surprising to see cats appear in it. Led by the seasoned Professor Flurbin, this lecture was very popular, so everyone scored high marks. Initially, my scores were very low, but at some point, my training progress started to improve rapidly. Even now, in written assignments for various subjects, there are hardly any students who can surpass me. he thought to himself. At the same time, Professor Flurbin spoke up. Today's class ends here. Hearing this, Ed quickly gathered his books. However, the professor turned to look at him and reminded, "Oh, and Ed, please come to the laboratory after the lecture." Across the room, Ed was a bit surprised upon hearing this. However, he quickly moved to the laboratory to meet with the professor, and here the professor began to explain the reason. "Do you know about the undergraduate scholarship program?" Hearing this, Ed thought for a moment and asked, "Do some tasks for the academy in exchange for a partial tuition fee waiver, right?" "You know it well, Ed. This is your chance." "So what exactly does it involve?" Ed asked again, and Professor Flurbin began to explain, "Most of it involves tasks for the academy, but mostly it probably involves assisting Professor Claire's assistant. Professor Glast has left a ton of work. Annie's is an outstanding student, but can't handle everything alone. Let's see. First there's the end of semester assessment, then the conference program during the break. And when the break ends, there's the placement test for first-year students. When meeting the first years, don't be too rigid," he began, listing out each task, causing Ed to furrow his brow in thought. If they are first-year students, surely they will also enroll. As for Lortel, after resolving the issue with Glast, she retrieved the Sage's Seal grimoire. Truly, the resonance with the magical power was very intense. She held the grimoire in her hand and thought about what she wanted Ed to do. "I wonder if I can really sell this to that guy, Crepin." Ed made such an unreasonable request. Perhaps from the very beginning, he didn't want this item to fall into Crepin's hands in the first place. "No, this is a business. Think about the money." "Yes, I probably need to become more decisive," she muttered, reminding herself. Lortel's motto is "never put off until tomorrow what you can do today." She thought she could really accept any request as long as it included a certificate of purchase for the grimoire. Thinking about this, her face turned red again, and she said happily, "Just this once, and I don't have to worry about the wooden house anymore. As the semester wraps up, it's not just you feeling the heat. Even Jenica and Senior Ed will be swamped with their own tasks. As for Lucy, nothing much has changed. But why? Why do I feel so uneasy?" Lortel thought, staring at the broken pen nib. Back in Ed's cabin, the chibi girl was also boredly reminding him, "We're running out of firewood. Winter is coming, and we will run out of wood," the witch said, while chewing on a piece of dried meat. "That's true, but," Ed stammered in response. However, before he could finish, Lucy asked, "Why haven't you gone hunting lately?" Hearing this, Ed started to feel that something was a bit different about Lucy. Why is Lucy suddenly interested in useful conversations, he wondered. But now, saying it wouldn't do any good. "I think moving to the Dex Hall isn't too bad. That way, I'll see less of Lucy. So the plot might stabilize in some way, right?" Ed thought to himself. At the same time, Jenica, having some free time, came over to his cabin. "Hi, Ed." "Oh, Jenica, are classes over for today?" Ed asked. "Yes. Professor Mary's afternoon class was canceled, so I came here to rest," she replied. "Once the winter break starts, you won't stay at the camp anymore. So I'll come here as much as I can. I've really enjoyed and cherished the time here. But knowing that this life is coming to an end makes me feel a bit lonely. I love this camp so much. It's a shame we can't come here to play anymore. But Ed's living environment is also very important. So if you decide to move into Dex Hall, let me know. If you need any help, I'll be there for you. There are many things to do. Most of my classmates live in Dex Hall, so we'll definitely see each other often. And if we meet in the student cafeteria, let's eat together. I usually eat early. On days when Clara can't make it, I eat alone. On the first day, I'll show you around all the places there. We'll meet tomorrow morning. And the room needs at least 2 people. So if you need an extra person, let me know." She started talking like a machine, but Ed didn't pay much attention. He was busy observing the key that Glast had given him. First, I need to check out the secret treasure in the library that Professor Glast mentioned, he thought. And Jenica, after finishing her planning, threw a letter to Ed, leaving him a bit surprised. Is this the Dex Hall registration form? Yes. During the application season, late applications are usually overlooked. So it's best if you fill it out first, then think it over carefully. Oh, you took care of this too. Thanks a lot, Jenica. I wrote a draft before. Let's write it together now. First, fill in this part. But before she could finish, at that moment, the little girl Lucy suddenly interrupted between the two of them, and then she started frantically signaling, "Stop! Don't take that," the witch said to Ed in panic. But this also makes him not understand the problem. Time quickly passed, and Ed was training his skills. Through steady experience, he had reached a high level of accomplishment. Jenica beside him clapped continuously, amazed by his impressive progress. Ed, your empathic spirit has surpassed that of novice spirit mages, and your basic sensitivity has also improved significantly, Jenica said, awkwardly glancing at the tree stump beside her, the place where the short girl Lucy was staring at her with an annoyed look. Ah, Lucy, did I do something wrong? Jenica asked awkwardly. However, Lucy didn't answer the question, but quietly observed instead. Usually, the maids in Office Hall would help her maintain a tidy appearance. But today, she sneaked out of the dormitory before dawn, only wearing her pajamas outside. The image shifted to another scene. His magical power had increased. Now it's time to slowly use intermediate magic, Ed thought happily. Then the short girl suddenly rolled into his lap, interrupting his reading. Even while eating, Lucy clung to Ed, causing some other students to start whispering. Even when Jenica said, "If I did something wrong, can I apologize?" Lucy's attitude didn't change. Lucy seemed to have a particularly hostile attitude towards Jenica, but it seemed more like fear rather than aggression. But even so, learning intermediate magic is harder. I think I've been practicing all day and still haven't mastered the basics. Ed lay on the bed, frustrated, and at this moment, Lucy spoke up. Hey, what will you do when I leave? Hearing the question, Ed looked at the key in his hand and replied, I have work to do. I need to check the campfire and the fireplace. The temperature can drop below 0 at night. Then Lucy pondered for a moment and then said, Hey, let's go together now, Lucy suggested. The scene shifts to the sewer area. At the hole that Lucy had created when she freed Ed earlier, Ed also lowered the rope and slowly climbed down to check what Professor Glast left for him. Why are you following me here? He asked, looking at Lucy. If we use my magic, we can go down together. She calmly replied, I need to check if I can climb up and down by myself. So it's not necessary, Ed said, observing the scenery of the spirit library. After glancing at the number of magical items hidden here, he continued, We probably can't take everything in one go. We'll likely have to come back here again. Saying that, Ed followed the previous instructions from Glast and found the secret safe. It's surprising that there's a secret safe hidden here. Why did the professor keep this key until the very end? He wondered, quickly using the key to open the safe. And as soon as the door was opened, a dazzling light shone from inside, causing both of them to squint. So this is what was hidden, Ed thought in amazement as he saw the shape of the item inside. Time passed. At this moment, Ed used the rope to climb up. It's time to get the necessary materials to craft the magical equipment that I asked Lortel to prepare. But first, I need a ladder. If I hadn't trained my stamina before, I would have given up by now, Ed thought to himself, then suggested dejectedly, Let's take a break. Hearing this, Lucy stopped and turned to ask, So what is that? She said, looking at the ring in Ed's hand. This is a legendary magical item, Glast's Golden Phoenix Ring. This device allows you to bend time and draw mana from the future into the present. Difficulty to craft, 4.5 stars. Its effect allows you to use magical power from your future self. So theoretically, I can use advanced magic right now. However, if I do that, I won't be able to fight for a long time, equal to the amount of borrowed magic. Using it recklessly will come at a very high cost. So if you want to use it in battle, there's only one way when you're cornered. It's the ultimate trump card. But what if we don't use it in battle? Like for a spirit contract? The reason Jenica can control so many spirits is because not only is her sensitivity high, but her mana levels are also incredibly large. Beginner spirit mages like me only have 1 or 2 slots and usually have to train a lot to be able to communicate with low-level spirits. In summary, it's because my maximum mana isn't enough. But if I can increase my maximum mana, even temporarily, then theoretically it's enough to make a contract with a high-level spirit. Of course, that's a risky and aggressive calculation. Then Lucy spoke up. If Glast had the time to do that, so he should have just. But before she could finish, Ed interrupted her. No, it's all in the past now, Lucy. And maybe, even if we search every corner of that library, nothing would be more valuable than this. And then continued to climb up. Professor Glast would never waste time. Professor Glast, though often saying that pushing talent to the limit is a sin, this is an item that can break the walls of talent with the greatest magical power. It's precisely because of that Professor Glast researched magical devices. The thing he hid from everyone. The thing he kept until his last breath. Everything was a gift for his daughter, Lucy, since she didn't have to climb and exhaust herself like Ed, had some time to chat. Hey, a long time ago, I once lost a button from my shirt. The button at the end of my sleeve. I didn't realize how important it was until the sleeve became too wide and hard to wear. So, I struggled with it for quite a long time. After losing it, I realized how important seemingly trivial things are. Things I once thought were insignificant turned out to be very important. Actually, I followed you because I wanted to ask you something. Are you going to Dex Hall? Can you not go? She said with a slightly sad and sincere face to him. Hearing her say that, Ed's eyes widened. An unexpected question coming from Lucy's mouth. But he maintained a neutral attitude. Should I move into Dex Hall or continue living at camp? Ed thought to himself and then spoke out in a breath. Living in Dex Hall is clearly more convenient. Moreover, living in the wilderness during this cold winter is not a wise choice. Makes sense, it's going to rain, isn't it? Lucy replied. It wasn't clear what her mood was at that moment. Lucy often had the ability to predict rain by the dark clouds in the sky and the humidity she felt on her nose. But it wasn't always accurate, like right now. After Ed heard that, he immediately objected. No, it's not the rainy season. At this moment now, the scene before the two of them was snowflakes slowly falling from the sky. What falls from the sky is not always rain. However, after a long rainy season, people might mistakenly think it's going to rain, even though that season has passed. Ed sighed inwardly and continued. Anyway, I've been too busy lately, so I haven't gathered enough firewood for the winter. I can't handle it all by myself, so if you have time, please give me a hand. Didn't you already say that we're running low on firewood? By saying this, it seemed Ed had decided to stay in his wooden house instead of moving to Dex Hall, and this made Chibi extremely happy. She immediately rushed to Ed's side. Really? 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 Lucy kept asking to confirm. Ed calmly explained, I've completely adapted to life in the wooden house. If we can improve the living conditions a bit more, life here will be much more beneficial. Saying that, it seemed he also saw some expression on Lucy's face and became silent. When I close my eyes, a stream of thoughts rushes in. The confrontation between Princess Fenia and Lortel, both aiming for the position of student council president. The main characters and new enemies will enter the academy as new students, and the one standing at the end of this stage, the final boss of Chapter 3, is Lucy Marrow. It's not an easy task, but for now, I'm setting aside my worries. After all the stories ended, surely we both lived very healthily. Seeing an expression never before seen on Lucy's face in any scene or route, I felt that confident. Time quickly passed. Now, winter has arrived. When the snow falls, it brings a warm feeling. But when the snow accumulates, it also means that work is piling up. After cleaning everything up, the sun had risen high. It's been a long time since I decided not to overwork myself. Even though the workload is heavy, tomorrow I have been called to work because I am a scholarship student. So I decided to complete all the tasks today. We need to quickly gather enough firewood and food. The cold weather means we don't need to worry about preservation. The food issue was resolved quickly. Instead of receiving dormitory subsidies, I decided to take tuition subsidies. So, the tuition fee issue has been somewhat resolved. No longer living by dividing time hour by hour like the early days. Instead, it's now divided into 5 parts: morning, noon, afternoon, evening, night. But that doesn't mean just sleeping like this. Ed complained when he saw Lucy sleeping. I was going to throw Lucy outside, even though the magical protection around her showed the cold wouldn't bother her. But I still feel a bit guilty. I don't know when I'll have some peace. If I have to face risk, it's probably right now. It is time, Ed muttered, taking out his ring and beginning to use it, causing his magical power to surge rapidly. Are you listening? Marilda. When the weather turned to winter, the school was covered with snow and the lake was frozen. The exquisite taste of pastries crafted by a former royal pastry chef, the terrace that smelled like flowers. Laplace Bakery's high-end afternoon tea set must be ordered months in advance. But if I didn't use this bait, how could I lure you out here? Bait? What bait? It's like I've been tricked into coming here. Let me be blunt. I think you're heading into dangerous territory. You've fallen for Ed Rothtaylor. Clara stood up and slammed the table, speaking to Jenica. How did you know? How could I not know? And I don't intend to stop you. At first it felt like my world was collapsing. After my assessment of Ed Rothtaylor changed, I decided to accept the situation that had occurred. But the issue is, as your heart pounded so rapidly that you couldn't talk while with him, or were you too nervous to look him in the eye recently? Are you inquiring about that? Just answer me, yes or no. Jenica was also stammering in her response rather than my heart pounding or me getting nervous being around him. Felt comfortable and snug. Before she could finish, Clara exclaimed, "That's it. That is a sign that you are going to the worst bad ending in dating comfortable girlfriend." Clara's outburst, "Idiot. What's the meaning of one-sided love? You have to make him miss you," reverberated in the room. Jenica shrank back, feeling embarrassed for herself. What kind of relationship is it? If it's just you liking him and following him around, that's just a follower relationship. Clara grabbed Jenica's hand firmly, her eyes filled with urgency. Let it go, Jenica. It's winter break, your chance to move on. That guy might be handsome, but he's a flirt. We need to find a solution fast. I'm heading home soon, and I'm really worried about you. Annie's hearing Clara's guidance thought. Clara's truly a master of romance, armed with endless love advice from friends. She's right. But the reason Ed Rothtaylor is so highly regarded is largely due to Clara. To help Jenica, she continuously praised him in front of Belle, the academy staff, and friends. So now everyone thinks he's a completely different person than before. She came to her own conclusion. Watching Claire get scolded by the librarian for returning books late was enough to see she wasn't very dignified. She was always clumsy in everything she did, so Anis often wondered how she managed to become a professor. But all the professors recognized Professor Claire's ability, her remarkable talent for winning people's hearts. Somehow she was mentored by many distinguished scholars like Professor Glast and Flurbin, and finally graduated after enduring countless rigorous tests from them. She even had an outstanding assistant. The young man spoke to Anis. What is all that? It must be heavy. Should I help you? It's fine, thank you, she replied with a smile. The reason, Professor. Claire, incredibly clumsy, could complete all her work flawlessly, was thanks to Anis, her assistant. She was a second-year student who earned the respect of even the Academy's most seasoned staff, the greatest advisor. The reason Claire's personal research room is always neat and tidy is due to Anis's exceptional work management skills. She meticulously gathered personal information, almost like surveillance, from the library administrative offices and even the dormitory. If discovered, it could cause significant trouble. But she cleverly concealed it with her gentle smile. Few knew her true self, except for Jenica and Clara. The Anis relationships were just masks she wore. Then she began searching for information about Ed, while waiting for Professor Claire to return. The Roth-Taylor family, the most powerful in the Chloe Empire, has 3 children, with the second son being Crepin Roth-Taylor. At just 2 years old, he became the heir, undoubtedly a proud and arrogant figure. He was baptized by the church at 5 years old and learned advanced knowledge by 12. Yet his grades showed no remarkable talent. Anis was forced to become independent when her family faced a crisis, surviving by becoming a teaching assistant and receiving a scholarship. She even looked up to Lortel, a year younger than herself, as an ideal model for limitless survival abilities. Though she lacked the talent to perceive the flow of money, Anis had her own unique methods. Ed Roth-Taylor undoubtedly grew up in a stifling environment, subjected to imposed ideologies. He was provided with every material comfort, but had no magical talent and showed no abilities in his first year. Perhaps he lacks confidence and is drawn to gentle, lively girls. Always wanting to lead others but avoiding responsibility, he prefers those who agree with him and those who stay in the background. He loves to flaunt his wealth, but given the current situation, that seems impossible. In summary, things aren't too difficult. Let's practice a bit, she said, smiling to herself. At that moment, Claire returned and spoke up. I bought some pastries from Laplace. Let's have a bite. You've already made the tea. That's so, Anis. You even guessed I'd bring back pastries. But Claire accidentally dropped her cup, spilling its contents on the floor. Clumsy again, Anis is going to scold me, she thought to herself. Contrary to her expectations, Anis asked her, "Are you okay?" This took Claire by surprise. Thank goodness you're okay, right? That's a relief. And this statement surprised her even more. Back to Ed, he adjusted his clothes while expressing his gratitude. I'm dreading having to wash my uniform during the break, thanks. And the one who helped him was none other than the maid. Well, it's just washing an extra uniform. Besides, the person I serve often receives help from you. Recently, while washing Lady Lucy's clothes, I found many strands of blonde hair. And while washing Master Ed's clothes, I also smelled the fragrance of perfume and found strands of white hair just like Lady Lucy's hearing. This he thought to himself. Recently, Lucy has been sticking close to me. Can she really tell just by washing clothes? If she weren't a maid, what would she do? But Master Ed, why do you always speak so politely to me? I feel more comfortable this way. Belle responded differently. I feel comfortable when you don't use honorifics with me. In fact, as the head maid, Belle was one of the senior staff members at the academy. While I'm no longer a noble and not in the Theophilus Hall, I feel uncomfortable speaking informally to her, so I will speak formally as it is comfortable for me. You are the chief maid. You must have a lot of people to manage. Ed said. Belle replied, I'm not sure. Just call me informally. The one with a lot to manage is young Master Ed. Not me. Ed did not understand what Belle meant at that moment. It's all right. Don't worry too much. Whatever the ladies decide, it's their choice. Anyway, I can do laundry for you whenever. Now that work is settled down and the Theophilus Hall has been repaired. Ed was surprised. Already fixed in just 1 semester. The academy must have put a lot of manpower into the repairs. With new students about to enroll, and among the 7 freshmen we will serve this semester, one has already started moving in Ed. Hearing this, guessed what was coming next and spoke up. That person is Tanya Roth-Taylor, right? Yes, you already knew. Then he fell into contemplation. This holiday is going to be quite a headache. My sister is about to join this academy. Back at Ed's wooden cabin, voices filled the air. This holiday, I'm going back home. What, you're going with Elka too? How did you know? At that moment, Ziggs was doing push-ups with just one hand. Yeah, I just want to spend time with Elka. Are you staying at the camp throughout the holiday? Probably heading into the 3rd year, I need to learn intermediate magic to save face. Just last year, you were struggling with basic magic, right? Don't push yourself too hard. Then Ziggs had finished his training. I can't sense any magical energy from you. Have you exhausted yourself again? You seem a bit feverish. Are you really sick? A bit, I guess. I probably won't be using magic for a while. Ziggs checked Ed's condition by placing his hand on Ed's forehead. If you say so, it should be fine. Ziggs' strength is his easygoing nature. He never asks too many questions, which makes me feel at ease. Ed thought to himself. By the way, Aloy asked about you. There seems to be some misunderstanding, so she wants to meet you to apologize, Taylor, too. She wanted to know where your house is, but I didn't tell her. It's personal information. Ed closed his book and said, just tell her she doesn't need to apologize. Ed's calm demeanor is consistent. I'm not angry at all, just don't think it's necessary to apologize. I hold no grudges, Ziggs beside him chimed in. Is this tolerance or indifference? Before you go, can you help me with something? I've been granted access to Professor Glast's underground library, but it's too messy. I need someone to help clean it up. Here's the payment. Ziggs caught the bag of money. Ed tossed to him and said, what money? Just consider it practice. So what are you planning to do with that library? A workshop, he replied to Ziggs while jotting something down. You're really versatile. You even know manufacturing techniques. You will definitely succeed, but don't exhaust yourself again. Meanwhile, Ed was marking off the tasks he needed to complete, and so the day came for his Academy Scholarship student work. Thank you all for coming. That's what she wanted to say, but Professor Claire couldn't speak at the moment because she had been up for nearly 44 hours, handling conference work and organizing the schedule for the next semester. Therefore, I, her assistant, will convey the important issues and tasks that need to be done. Our task is to prepare for the freshman placement exams and oversee the students on exam day. Hearing this, Ed realized it felt like a preset scenario. The freshman placement exam, an annual test, usually overseen by Professor Glast. However, this year Professor Claire would be in charge. He already knew the outcome, yet was surprised to learn that Clebius would also be participating. Last year, the exam was held in the northern forest of Arkan Island, but this year it will be held at Mount Oren in the northwest. Levius, please go to the Triz Hall to collect the pre-registered equipment. Senior Onyx, please support Professor Claire. At this moment, she still hadn't assigned Ed a task and thought to herself, both Clara and Jenica missed one thing. There are too many girls around Ed Rothtaylor. You can tell he's a charmer just by looking at him. Working with him is a great opportunity to test my understanding and ability to read people. I stayed up all night researching and creating an ideal model perfectly suited to his preferences. If he can't resist my charm, I'll separate you from Jenica. She thought to herself, then said aloud, Ed Rothtaylor, come survey the scene with me. At this moment, the two of them started heading to the Oren mountain range. While it isn't a tall mountain, it still poses many dangerous areas. Moreover, in this weather, if a student slips on the snow, they could get seriously injured. Tired, aren't you? Why don't you look tired at all, Ed? Hearing her say that, Ed replied, let's take a break for a bit. You look tired. She smiled back at him. Thanks, Ed. Your stamina is quite impressive. And you're considerate, too. It seems I may have misunderstood you. Misunderstood what? Ed asked curiously. You know what I mean, right? Jenica and I are close friends, so I'm worried whether she's making friends with the wrong people. Ed didn't mind her words and simply replied, it's okay. I don't hold grudges. Then he thought to himself, now the next point to check is I need to quickly finish this task. Maybe you're also feeling quite tired. As an assistant to the professors, you've worked hard. Ed calmly said with her, yes, that's true, but it's okay because Ed is here, she said while linking her arm with his. Of course, Clara and Jenica have helped me a lot, but having you here is also a source of motivation for me. Sorry if I hurt you, but you were expelled from your family, right? I'm almost in the same boat. My family faced a crisis just as I started school, but because I wanted to continue, I had to shoulder everything myself. It feels like enduring an endless winter, she said, her words carrying an empty feeling within. She is indeed very strong handling financial issues or anything else by herself. Then he comforted her. Don't worry too much, you've done very well. She smiled and said, thanks, Ed. And we also have a lot in common, she said. Ed found this a bit strange, really different from what I remembered. She was supposed to be a cold, pragmatic person. At that moment, she seemed to stumble. It might be an act. She fell into Ed's arms, and he said, "Careful, sorry. I tripped on a rock." Meanwhile, Ed looked ahead, but couldn't see any rock, filling his mind with question marks. Then she continued to pretend, "Why am I feeling so hot? I'll try to calm down right away." Then she continued, "Wait here for a bit, I'll be right back," leaving Ed with a bewildered expression, completely clueless about what just happened. Then she sat by the corner of a tree, muttering to herself. On the outside, he seems really kind and hardworking. Is this all an act? Hard to say. Building empathy by sharing the difficulties of academic life. Appearing weak and in need of protection, despite an energetic exterior, so I've combined both styles. A few natural touches, and finally an accidental one. Everything went almost according to plan. But now her face started to turn red, and earlier I didn't expect him to have such a good-looking body. Despite his scholarly appearance, his physique is quite solid. His appearance, she thought, revisiting the image of Ed in her mind. Ed's incredibly handsome face was glowing in her eyes, radiating an almost ethereal light. This made her blush and feel more fond of him. Then, Anise suddenly realized, "I get it now, this is how he flirts with other girls," she said confidently. "But I'm different, Ed Roth-Taylor. Let's see what else you've got." As for Ed, he had climbed to a peak somewhere in the Aran mountain range. "What a beautiful view," he remarked in awe. The scenery of Mount Aran can make all worries vanish, but there are still some issues that give him a headache. For example, Tanya Roth-Taylor villainess perfectly describes her as the Duke's daughter. Tanya is a born political genius. Her political acumen and cunning are ingrained in her very being. Based on that, she aims for the position of freshman student council president, something unprecedented in Sylvania's history. Soon she will begin to pull influential figures within the academy. Bell said that Tanya moved into the dormitory earlier than expected. It's definitely to consolidate power before the new semester begins. Tanya Roth-Taylor isn't a minor character, but an important villainess. He still remembers some details about her, so initially, he thought he could handle her. The issue is how Tanya will treat him. No idea. He know Tanya, but he don't know himself. More precisely, he don't know what kind of person Ed Roth-Taylor is. He was really just an extra, so there are no clues at all. That's why I have no idea how to handle this problem, how Ed Roth-Taylor is thinking to Tanya Roth-Taylor. Sylvania is where the brightest stars converge. The princes of the Chloe Empire, the head of the Elk Merchants Guild, a high-level spirit mage from a very young age. The alchemist who created the elixir of engraving as a student, the Beast, king ruling the northern plains, and the sword demon of the Nortondale family. And the most wonderful thing is the magic genius blessed by Archmage Glast. A place where noble people gather. It can only be the Sylvania she admire. She will immerse myself and fully enjoy academy life. At this moment, Belle had already welcomed the new student. Her luggage was neatly arranged. Her room is on the 3rd floor, and there will be a maid to guide her. You can tell the maid to handle the enrollment procedures. She then said, "I need to drop by a place first." "Yes, I understand," Belle replied. The first thing she have to do when she set foot in Sylvania, the academic land she've always dreamed of, is to clean up Ed Roth-Taylor. That trash has tainted the family's honor, Tanya said with determination as she aimed to eliminate her brother. At this moment, she was rereading the letter written by Kripin. "I am very happy to hear you say that I fully support you. Meet those people on behalf of mine and establish your own position." Before she set out for here, she told Kripin about her goals. Although Sylvania will treat everyone according to their status, but the essence of this place is still academic, so don't rely on your noble status to act irrationally. Those who are above you in studies are all your seniors. That was Kripin's advice to Tanya. "Thank you for taking the time for me, senior. You probably know that person already, so I'll be direct. He is the disgrace of the family and a thorn in my side. I will not let you down, father," she said, now feeling even more determined. "I've had to live with him since I was a child, so I know his true nature very well. but that can't compare to your past. He's a coward, only knows how to brag. He has no perseverance, just likes to follow trends and then abandon them. When he was accepted into Sylvania, I was very angry. But now seeing him with nothing, I feel glad. The person facing Tanya only said a few words, really. So taking this opportunity, as she had been speaking all this time, she thought to herself, why am I monologuing like this? Then she recalled Crepin's advice. The people I introduce you to must respect them. Especially in negotiations, you must never underestimate them. We only met during the grimoire transaction, but you will surely learn something from her. Meanwhile, Tanya felt a chill run down her spine as she faced the person opposite her, her expression becoming tense. Sitting opposite was none other than Lortel. What's the matter? Continue. But Lortel's eyes now had a deathly gaze fixed on Tanya. After hearing this, Tanya began to sweat, feeling as if she were facing a cunning snake that could swallow her at any moment. She tried to regain her composure and spoke up. Oh yes, is something upsetting you? Upset? What are you talking about? This is quite interesting, Lortel said with a smile emitting a dark aura that made Tanya feel suffocated. Back with Ed, he was organizing the skill books he had obtained from Professor Glast's library. It's really convenient to be able to borrow any book without worrying about the return deadline. The first day of scholarship work went smoothly. It seems like Anise had it much harder than he did. As he sat by the fire, he intended to release some magic, but suddenly remembered that he couldn't use it at the moment. Then he went back inside the house. Although he couldn't use magic, he wanted to master the theory by reading them. She frequently appeared unexpectedly at places and times Ed never anticipated. But now he was accustomed to all her actions. Hey, Lucy helped me light the pit fire. She seemed not to hear him or was half asleep, so Ed carried her outside to help him. There it is. Hearing this, she cast a spell and a burst of fire flared up. Now fully awake, Lucy said to Ed, I want to stay outside with you. Sitting next to Lucy, he also smelled a strange scent perfume. Ed wondered and asked, is something wrong? It's probably because he was with Anise all day for work, so the scent clung to his clothes and mine. Then she worriedly asked him, are you feverish? Are you sick? But Ed calmly replied, can you tell? Don't get sick. If you do, you might die. Your magic power is disrupted. I'll help you, she said, extending her hand to use magic to aid him. But as she was adjusting Ed's magic power, she felt something was off. It's not a disruption, it's depletion. Did you do something reckless again? Don't worry, I've got this. After winter, you might be stronger. Can I ask a strange favor? I want you to pat my head. Then she lay on Ed's lap and let him stroke her head. Lucy's face was now filled with happiness. Perhaps she didn't even realize this was love. At that moment, a voice from behind Ed said, long time no see, Senior Ed. Oh, Lortel, are you here because of last time? Ed asked, a mix of curiosity and concern in his voice as he turned to face the unexpected visitor. Oh no, I just wanted to talk to you about a few things, Senior. Then she noticed Lucy lying on Ed's lap and whispered slowly because of this. The scene shifts to Tanya, who is speaking with her next target. Thank you for your patience in listening. In summary, please help me punish him, and I will reward you handsomely. For instance, the island family has many famous archaeologists, right? I can share with you some artifacts from the Rothtaler family treasure. Elka was delighted to hear this from Tanya, eager to behold new artifacts. Then Zig spoke up from behind. Oh, really, Tanya Rothtaler, right? At this moment, Zig stood in front of Tanya. She thought to herself, his solid physique and the magic power flowing through him. I must recruit this person. Are you Senior Ed's sister? Yes, she replied, not knowing what Ziggs was thinking. Then he laughed and turned to Elka. Did you hear that, Elka? She's Senior Ed's sister. Then he handed her a magic tool. This is a prop used in the freshman class. Don't use a new one. Use this. It will be helpful. Oh, Elka, do you still have the professor's materials? Here they are. I almost threw them away. The two kept talking, leaving. Tanya, bewildered, not understanding what was happening. After wrestling with the pile of items for a while, they began wiping sweat from their faces. Meanwhile, Tanya was holding all kinds of items in her hands. So, did you hear my proposal clearly? Like, help me deal with Ed. Hearing this again, Ziggs pondered siblings often hate each other. In general, they never get along, and Senior Ed's personality is quite easy to misunderstand. Anyway, you're Ed's sister. It's nice to meet you. Then Ziggs patted Tanya on the shoulder and said goodbye to her. Hang in there, we're off. At that moment, Tanya collapsed under the weight of the items she was carrying. Leaving her lying in the pile of items bewildered, she wondered what just happened. The scene then shifts to Claire's office. Anis's voice echoed, "You've worked hard." Seeing herself in the mirror, now she almost looked like a zombie from working through the night. Anis spoke up. "You just need to do well in the freshman placement exam next week. Then you can rest for the remainder of the break." "Oh, Anis, is this the vigor of youth? It's been 2 days, and you're still full of energy." Meanwhile, Anis was rearranging the pile of documents, thinking, "Sure enough, you can't rely on others. Both Onyx and Clebius work so carelessly. I always have to redo everything. Only Id is different. Handling paperwork so neatly, his problem-solving skills far exceed my expectations. Honestly, I'm very surprised. It seems he wasn't as pampered as I thought." At that moment, Claire approached her Anis. "You went with Ed, didn't you? Is he like you thought? Keep this a secret from Ed. After the Awfulest Tower occupation incident, I had something to investigate, so I followed him. He set up a campsite bigger than this research lab tool's fire pit shelves. It seems he made everything himself." She felt how much he struggled with life, and was even surprised at how his grades had improved so much. Even Professor Glast praised him. He even made a contract with the spirit. Not sure how he did it, but he must have worked very hard. Claire's words made Anis reconsider whether he was truly a bad person. Then Claire continued, "You and he have a lot in common." At this moment, Anis had to admit partly, although she praised him like that. "But even though he's not bad, I can't trust other people's evaluations and support Jenica. He has an attractive appearance, not arrogant at all, and is highly regarded by Claire. He seems very gallant with a great physique and a pleasant scent." After thinking about it, Anis felt something different. Claire beside her asked Anis, "What's wrong? It seems a bit hot. Let's open the window." This action caused the papers to scatter all over the room. "Oh no, this is bad. This is really bad. What should I do?" Anis wondered to herself as she noticed her unusual expressions when thinking about Ed. Then she recalled Claire's words that Ed had made a pact with the spirits. Mug is one of his spirits, and it was Jenica who helped Ed control it. Therefore, all her actions will be reported back to Jenica by Ed. Thinking about this, she began to tremble, unsure of what to do. After gathering part of the scattered documents, Claire turned around and said, "You must have finished your work. Eat something, let me buy it for you." But in response to Claire, Anis had somehow vanished without a trace. By Jenica's usual tree mug seemed to have reported the day's events to her. It seemed hearing something she couldn't imagine. Jenica began to cry. At this moment, Tanya had arrived at Jenica's place and greeted her from the other side. "Hi, Senior Jenica, can I talk to you for a bit?" Tanya panted as she said these words. Then she recalled Lortel's words to her. "Jenica is renowned for her talent and exceptional skills. Especially if you want to achieve your goals, you absolutely have to recruit her." So as if under some spell, she followed Lortel's advice. Meanwhile, Jenica began to emit flames around herself. Tanya began to sweat as she saw the flames erupting around Jenica. However, when she looked at Jenica's face, she sensed something ominous. Back at Ed's house, Lortel spoke up. "Most of the production materials you requested have been found, but the legendary grade materials are still missing because they are very hard to find in winter." Ed responded to her, "That's unavoidable anyway. Thank you for helping me when you're so busy. Just a small favor, don't worry about it. Why didn't you rest? This place is far from the Trade Guild," he said, handing her a glass of water. Lortel accepted the glass with a grateful look. "Don't worry, I just came here to unwind." The moon is slowly setting, leaving only traces of what was once as round as a wheel. Everyone is diving into hibernation, yet each person embraces it differently. For Ed, this winter is a challenge to protect himself from the harsh cold. This is a busy time to prepare for it. Then Lortel noticed something beside him. She squinted her eyes and asked Ed, "Hey, why is Lucy sleeping there?" It's winter, he replied nonchalantly. Ed's matter-of-fact response left her speechless. Is that really an answer? Seeing that she let the matter go. Actually, I have something else to discuss. Oh, another matter. She summoned the grimoire in her hand and asked, Are you pretending to know nothing? But she suddenly retracted it. Instead, a letter appeared in her hand. I helped you bid for this grimoire as you requested, so at least I should get something worthy for the money I spent, right, Senior Ed? Ed couldn't look her straight in the eyes at this moment. So what do you want? It seems I can't ask you to do something that feels pressured and difficult to accomplish. So lean towards me? She said, leaning toward Ed. Lortel's request took Ed by surprise. Now it's Act 3, marking the confrontation between Princess Phinia and Lortel. Princess Phinia Elias Chloe, the fated rival of Lortel's life. According to the plot, she will become the president and control the academy, increasing her power. With that strength, she has delved into the dark side of the Roth-Taylor family. Lortel continued, Everyone in the academy might have to choose a side, meaning there will be choices. So if that happens, please stand by my side. It's a simple request, isn't it? The battle between Phinia and Lortel, the winner would be determined by the protagonist's decision. Anyway, it's not up to him, Ed thought to himself. Then he replied to Lortel, It doesn't matter which side I'm on. So why do you still want me to do something meaningless? Ed asked, looking puzzled. So what? It's not about politics. It's about whether it has personal meaning for me. Then Ed agreed, all right. This isn't too difficult. After hearing Ed's response, Lortel threw the letter into the fire, and the flames began to spread across the letter. This surprised Ed. Lortel Kekelm always wore a charming smile when laying out her plans. She was a girl with many faces, but is this also one of her faces? Ed saw her happy smile and didn't know how to describe it. At this moment, the sky was bright, and Ed had also woken up after his sleep. Lucy had somehow appeared trailing silently behind him. Ed recalled the last conversation with Lortel from last night. Senior Ed, you have a sister, right? Does she see you as an enemy of the family, or is it just sibling rivalry? So, I introduced her to some people who will come to introduce themselves. Perhaps tomorrow morning she will come to see you. Senior, she even said she would scold you. And whatever was meant to happen eventually happened at this moment. Tanya had arrived at Ed's camp with her entourage. Ed thought to himself, he didn't know what kind of relationship he had with her, no matter how much he tried to remember. Long time no see, brother. By the way, I brought a gift, his sister said, surprising Ed. Seeing Tanya's fearful face, he assessed. Is she nervous? It seems like she's afraid of something. Ed thought to himself, and home Ed could be a respectable older brother. This made him stand up, suddenly startling Tanya. He apologized to Ed Roth-Taylor himself for underestimating him. Ed's sudden movement brought a look of fear back to Tanya's face. She had no idea what he might be planning next. Tanya recalled the scene of Ed stepping on the servant's face in her family, his face filled with malice and cruelty. The servant was pressed harder against the floor, crying out in pain. Tanya couldn't bear it any longer and screamed, Please stop. Ed looked over at her, his expression unreadable, like he wanted to say something. It's surprising that you feel sympathy for these tools. Haven't you fully become a noble? Yet Tanya Ed's face at this moment was the true visage of a villain. Contrary to that memory, Ed now smiled. Thank you, Tanya. I'll cherish it. I'll wear it every day. But I've already been expelled from the family, so you don't have to do this. Tanya looked a bit bewildered and was about to slip away, but Ed said, Don't just stand there. Come sit by the fire, wait for me a moment. After saying that, he went into his house, leaving Lucy sitting near the fire. After coming out, he carried 2 cups of herbal tea and asked I, Heard you've been around the academy and met a few people, right? Yes, most people were talking about you. I don't know many people, just Ziggs and Jenica, I guess. Hearing Jenica's name, Tanya's entourage jumped and started sweating. Seeing their reactions, he knew. You've met her right. Among the people I know, she's the kindest, always ready to help others. Tanya nodded vigorously. Yes, Senior Jenica is really good, extremely good. But her faces still showed signs of panic. Ed added, Additionally, she's very powerful. The fire spirit named Tarkin, once summoned, can sweep everything away. Yes, she said gentle and polite words of encouragement, wishing me luck, she recalled shakily thinking back to last night. So did she summon the high-level spirit? No, nothing at all, just my imagination, she said. But Ed thought something must have happened that he wasn't aware of. The Tanya he knew wasn't the type to be this weak. Indeed, everyone who had met him seemed to harbor ill feelings towards him. Then he called out to her, "Hey, Tanya, I was a bit to blame when I was still with the family, wasn't? There's no way to fix it now. I'm sorry. I heard you're aiming for the president position. I'll support you. Anyway, I know you always give your best," Ed said, smiling at her. The protagonist thought, even though she can't become president, and he feeling a bit sorry for Tanya. Anyway, this was the first time he met his relative in this world. Seeing Tanya's expression, he had no idea where their relationship would go. After leaving Ed's camp, Tanya returned to her room at the Theophilus Hall. She knew his true nature. But when she badmouthed Ed, she almost got burned by Jenica. At that moment, she understood that Jenica seemed to trust and follow Ed. But this is too strange. Sylvania is full of outstanding people. Even a rare magical genius like Lucy Merrill is present in Sylvania. In a place full of such exceptional people, no matter how well Ed Roth-Taylor acts, his true nature will eventually be revealed. As she thought about this, she saw Chibi Lucy appear opening the door to the room next to hers. She lives next door. Even in the dormitory of Theophilus Hall, there's someone as clumsy and lacking in refinement as her. It seems that no matter where, there will always be imperfect gaps. That guy's just lucky. While Tanya was still pondering, Lucy spoke up. "Are you Ed's sister?" Lucy leaned forward and placed her hand on Tanya, saying, "If you have any difficulties, just tell me." The scene was somewhat amusing. After saying that, she went into her room, leaving Tanya standing there, looking bewildered. At that moment, Tanya noticed something in Lucy's room. It was the gold nameplate that only top-ranking students could use. After reading the nameplate, she was even more bewildered. Even the magical genius Lucy Merrill follows him. I don't understand at all. The scene shifts to the afternoon in the rose garden. At this moment, Anis was flustered. "Can you introduce me to a guy, Belle? I want someone tall, handsome, and talented. Since you've been working at the Theophilus dorm for a long time, I'm sure you know many guys, right? Don't you often meet guys? Actually, do you even have dating experience?" At this point, Anis's face fell. Seeing this, Belle quickly explained, "Sorry, I didn't mean anything bad by it. You're always so busy, and I thought you weren't interested in dating. Like Ed, you two have many similarities." Hearing Belle mention Ed, Anis startled. This made Belle suspect something. Then she spoke up. "You're really perceptive." "Yes, that's exactly it," Anis admitted, looking shy before Belle could finish her sentence. "Due to many rumors, I decided to meet him to check for myself. After considering it, I found we have quite a lot in common. Overall, we get along well. And he's pretty interesting." Belle asked, "So in the end, you like him, right?" Anis nodded. "Yes, I won't deny it. I feel somewhat attracted to him, and that's a good sign. If he's someone who draws my interest, it means Jenica chose the right person. But it will be a problem if I don't give up my feelings soon. If we see it as a disease, it's lucky we've discovered it early. He's not the only man in the world, so if I find another guy and publicly say we're dating," she said while looking at the information on the guys she had collected, including Ed. At this moment, Belle calmly asked Anis, "Has Jenica discovered your feelings? Is that why you're in such a hurry?" To be honest, if you're thinking of finding someone as a replacement, it's really unfair. Even for Anis, I don't think she should worry too much about others. Falling for someone is perfectly normal. Why are you planning to end it by finding a new lover as a replacement? Hearing Belle say that, Anis explained, "Yesterday I met Jenica, but we didn't greet each other and left. It felt awkward, and her expression looked dark. And in the new semester, I have to supervise alongside Ed. This makes me feel guilty towards Jenica, and I don't know what to do anymore," Anis said, trembling. "It might not be as serious as you think. On the contrary, it could even be a positive thing." Hearing Belle say this, Anis felt a bit relieved, but still had some reservations. Because Jenica is always kind and a genius to everyone as her friend, you two always protect her from being hurt. But is Jenica always perfect in everyone's eyes? that might not always be a good habit. Then Belle placed her hand on Anis's shoulder, comforting her today. I felt a bit confused by your attitude, but when you told me about this, I felt very grateful. Sometimes imperfections create their own unique charm. Could we call it the protective instinct? After listening, Anis recalled what Claire had said to Jenica, which eased her mind. Thanks to Belle's encouragement that she didn't need to feel guilty, everything became clearer. Thinking about it with thoughts of Jenica, Anis could only smile. If you're wondering where Jenica is right now, she's right here in Ed's camp. At this moment, Ed spoke up. Oh, Jenica, when did you get here? But Jenica remained silent, not saying a word. After he got closer, he saw that she was still the same, not moving at all, which made him feel strange. Ed thought for a while and didn't plan to say anything. Instead, he fetched her a cup of warm water to drink. She accepted it as Ed began to speak. It is snowing again. There was already a lot on the ground. It seems that it is snowing at least every 2 days. Then Ed got straight to the point. So do you have something on your mind? If there's an issue, just say it. But her response was an apology. Sorry, I can't say it now. Ed's next words took her by surprise. Then you don't have to. Then he took the blanket he had ready and wrapped it around Jenica, making her look bewildered. Her face was now both shy and a bit sad, as if she were about to cry, making Ed remember what kind of person she was. Jenica's academy life must be pretty difficult. She kind of seemed like a small animal backed into a corner. So it is hard to just brush her off. Its cold winter continues. It's a cold that's hard to endure with just a blanket and a fire. But spring is slowly approaching. Jenica leaned against Ed under the blanket, warming themselves by the fire in this cold winter. The Roth-Taylor family, with 3 children in this generation, had always maintained peace in their territory. However, after the eldest daughter, Arwen Roth-Taylor, died, the new heir was changed to Ed Roth-Taylor. What kind of person is he? He is someone always smug because of his family's power, a trash heap who acts like everything revolves around him, only because he became the heir of the family. What can you do if you look at me with eyes like that? Can you kill me? Since Arwen has left this world, isn't this good? Now if I die, you will become the heir. It would stab me, hurry. I told you to push it in. These are all her memories, although she and he shared the same blood. There's nothing she can do. She has lived like a useless person, and her opportunity came after Ed was expelled from the family. This means she just needs to prove herself and win the student council president position with her plan. Then the day of the freshman class ranking competition arrived. Don't come near here, Anis said to Ed. Then she started rambling about scent, eyes, or aura. Anyway, I don't suit you, so don't come near, what she said. Left Ed questioning. Anis is definitely smart. She must have a reason, right? After that, Claire spoke about the task. I think I have explained all the details. Shall we go and prepare for the exam now? Then they climbed the stairs here. Unlike the previous test in the Northern Forest, this time it will take place at Mount Orrin. Because Professor Glast is no longer here, Professor Claire will be in charge of the exam. The difference from the previous exam, where one had to find a hidden magical gem on the mountain, is that this time the stone is very easy to find. Moreover, they aren't well hidden, and there aren't any scores based on them. Whoever finds the stone and places it on the altar will have the opportunity to get into Class A. It sounds easy, but like student Claire's face broke into a devilish smile. Defeating countless beasts and wild animals, only the freshmen who remain standing will be able to enter Class A with an incredible level of difficulty. In the end, among the freshmen of Sylvania Academy this year, no one made it into Class A. The extreme difficulty of the challenge taught the students a profound lesson in endurance and strategy. Of course, it was all part of the plan. The fact that no one got into class. Will connect to an important event later on, so it must remain unchanged. Therefore, I didn't make any special suggestions about the difficulty that Professor Claire proposed, just that we'll have to write a report later. From now on, new student will have to fight against illusionary monsters created by the magic discs. Our job is just to set them up and ensure their safety. Moreover, the purple vision disc is the most important. This is what makes getting into Class A impossible. What Ed is worried about now is seeing Ani struggling with that purple disc. If you're tired, let me help you. Thanks, Onyx. Anyway, it's not too heavy. Perhaps. Onyx didn't notice that the person asking her was Ed and mistook him for Onyx. After looking closely, she realized it was Ed extending his hand to help her carry it. But suddenly seeing Ed's face so close to hers, she cried out in surprise and moved away from him. And because of that, she slipped off the step, creating a moment of surprise and danger. But luckily, Ed managed to catch her. Now she had an extremely embarrassed expression. However, it seemed her hand had accidentally let go of something. At this moment, Ed noticed the bag had slipped from her hand and started sweating. As per the laws of physics, the disc quickly started rolling down the steps. But Clebius quickly caught it as it fell towards him. That was close. It could have been a disaster. What would we have done if it broke? Ed also sighed in relief as the script was not disrupted again. Anis was still blushing in his arms. Then luck didn't last long. Cracks began to appear on the disc. And then it shattered in the next second. At this moment, Ed was stunned watching the shattered pieces fall from Clebius's hands. Ed unconsciously let go of Anis, making her cry out loud. The situation was tense and everything seemed to be spiraling out of control. Ed knew that not everything could go smoothly. This year, the combat practice is also a significant event. This real battle will determine a lot, not just in terms of skills, but also strategy and teamwork. The situation becomes even more tense as everyone knows this event could completely change the dynamics of the academy. The talented first-year students are starting to explode, not hesitating to use any means, blurring the concept of real combat here. However, all of them were defeated by Taylor. It seems that after a year, Taylor has become much stronger than before. His remarkable progress has changed the dynamics and left everyone in awe. His determination and relentless effort have elevated him to a new level. And even Saintus Clarice, hidden among the crowd, has taken notice of Taylor. The attention from someone like Clarice will surely add a new layer of challenge for Taylor, but also an opportunity for him to prove his capabilities. This is the crucial turning point where the connection between the Saintus, one of the four main characters of the game, and the following events becomes clear. In the battle with Lucy in Act 3, and beyond, her strength will be essential. Because she is a very important character, everything must go according to the script. The power and role of the Saintus in the story cannot be changed, and all events will depend on her presence and actions. Therefore, the class ranking competition is very important. According to the storyline, no one will get into Class A under Professor Claire's actions. Exactly. It's about using the purple disc during the exam, which is now shattered. At this moment, everyone panicked, not knowing what to do. It seems like it's severely damaged. We need to find someone to fix it, someone said in the tense situation. The group was still confused while Anis looked downcast for having messed things up. Sorry, I should have been more careful, she said, full of regret. Meanwhile, Ed was deep in thought, seemingly contemplating a solution. After thinking, he spoke up. Now apologizing won't solve the problem. If things stay like this, many people will get into Class A, but we can still resolve this. Exactly, and with all of us, this is completely possible. After hearing him say, the Clebius next to him also shouted, "What?" At this moment, at the entrance of Mount Orne, how do you feel upon stepping into the land of knowledge, Sylvania? If you ask Tanya this question, she would say it's when she gets to meet her noble classmates. Building relationships with noble friends is not only a learning opportunity, but also a chance to create valuable connections, helping Tanya broaden her horizons and understanding of the world. Even if they are princesses or anyone else at Sylvania, they are all students wearing the same uniform with no distinction of status. However, there are still some exceptions. The anchor of millions of people within the Telos order, the Saintus Clarice. Tanya approached Saintus Clarice and greeted her. It is an honor to meet you, Saintus Clarice. I am the heir of the Rothtaylor family, Tanya Rothtaylor. Lord Crepin received the baptism from me. I was young then, so I don't remember much. It's truly an honor. When I grow up, I will also come to receive the baptism. All right? I will look forward to that, Miss Tanya. Meeting the Saintus when everyone is watching will be really useful for nominating oneself as the student council president. But today's main event is the class ranking competition. As Tanya finished thinking, the signal to start the competition appeared. And so all new students began their competition right now. Free tuition residence at Ophilus Hall and free use of all facilities. All these are rewards for those who make it to Class A. At this moment, the students have found the magic stones. Their remaining task is to place them on the altar. Their journey is about to reach its climax, with all eyes fixed on the freshmen making their way to the final position. The students overtook each other, racing toward the altar. The competition grew fiercer as everyone desired the enticing rewards of class. Now, the atmosphere was filled with excitement and tension, making for a dramatic race. There are so many magic stones. There must be measures to differentiate skill levels. I must be very careful, Tanya told herself before hearing a sound behind her. Seeing that, she asked with concern, "Are you hurt? I'll call someone to help." But the girl only said, "Oh no, not like that. I just wanted to try walking barefoot on the snow. It's so cold." The mushroom-headed girl happily hopped around in the snow, which made Tanya find it strange. Tanya began to feel speechless, thinking the girl might have some issues. "Oh, really? It seems we are in the same class," Tanya said, looking at the girl with a runny nose with surprise. "Oh, Roth Taylor. I heard that those in Roth Taylor are as amazing as your high status." Not all of us are like that, even in a high-status family over time. There are bound to be some rotten apples that tarnish it, Tanya replied. "Ed Roth Taylor, I don't know who you really are now, but the fear that consumed me then will never go away." After thinking about Ed, she continued walking slowly. The mushroom-headed girl happily followed. "So you're a Roth Taylor, and I'm just a commoner, so I should probably be polite to you, right? All right, this is Sylvania." "That's right. We are at Sylvania," the girl happily responded to Tanya. Then she introduced herself. "I am Kylie Eckney. I am from a small city called Taranay Principality in the east. I don't know much about this world, so if I do anything strange, please forgive me." Hearing Kylie speak so much, Tanya grew weary and changed the subject. "We're out of time for the test. We need to hurry up." After Tanya's reminder, Kylie continued to ramble, causing Tanya to feel frustrated inside. Why does she have to talk so much, she thought. Kylie took Tanya's hand and ran forward. "I don't care much about the competition, so I'll help you. This way our relationship will become closer, right?" Kylie looked delighted. "This is the first time I've had a friend my age." Tanya, however, was angry. "You're lucky. It's me. If you did this with a princess or a saintess, you'd be in big trouble." The competition has been going on for 30 minutes, and the boy from earlier is close to the altar area. "I'm in the lead, just a little more, and I'll be there," he thought, filled with excitement and determination. He paused to rest for a moment, panting heavily after running at full speed. "I'm going to die," he thought. But at that very moment, someone appeared beside him. Then the person punched him in the face, saying, "Then die." He looked at the boy he had just punched, feeling thrilled by his actions. The cruelty and satisfaction in what he did created a tense and dangerous atmosphere. And the one who punched the new student was Clebius, he thought to himself. Just as he said, handling this was really easy. At this moment, Anis is blocking other students as instructed by Ed while releasing her magic in various directions. Anis thought to herself, "Everything turning out like this is my fault, so I'll do my best." As for Onyx, because you are a master in flight magic, you will be responsible for ensuring the safety of the students. Onyx's skills and expertise in controlling flight magic will be a crucial factor in ensuring everyone's safety throughout the class ranking competition. Regarding the report on the change of the competition's content, Claire will write it as soon as she goes downstairs. If she doesn't sleep, she can complete it before the end of the competition. Hearing this, Claire could only cry. "Yes, if I don't sleep." In summary, Professor Claire will do the report. Onyx ensures safety. Clebius is in the south. Onyx is in the north. Onyx asked, "What about you, Ed?" He calmly replied, "I will stay here and guard the altar." Claire worriedly asked him, But you can't sense magic now. Will it be okay? I have my own plan. You don't need to worry. Ed replied, his calmness temporarily easing Claire's worry. Back to the present, the battle Clebius is fighting causes explosions with his screams, creating a chaotic scene. Meanwhile, Onyx is tending to the students Clebius has defeated, trying to keep everyone safe. At this moment, Ed is holding the broken disc. It's really difficult to fix it completely, and moreover, he hasn't recovered his magic power yet, so it's almost impossible. This deadlock adds more tension and pressure as everyone waits for a solution from him. Magic stones, expensive gems containing a great deal of magical power, are used in this test. They are not only valuable, but also hold immense power, creating a formidable challenge for those participating in the competition. And if you use this altar, although it will take some time, you can continuously recharge your magic power. This opens up a new opportunity for Ed to solve the immediate problem and prove his capabilities. At this moment, having recovered a bit of his magic power, Ed could see Mug, although he still couldn't hear what Mug was saying. Dividing Annie's and Clebius into two directions to block people from approaching the altar will give him a bit of time. During this time, Ed will maximize his efforts to recover as much magical power as possible. His ultimate goal is to ensure that no one gets into Class A. Tanya and Kylie have gotten closer to the altar, and now the person they have to face is Clebius. I'm a bit tired, and I'm not in a good mood, so let's end this quickly. Hearing this, Tanya turned pale while Kaylee remained inexplicably calm. At this moment, an explosion occurred in the opposite direction. The blast echoed through the air, creating sudden chaos and tension. This caught Clebius's attention. The explosion came from the north, but it wasn't. Anis's magic Tanya signaled to Kylie as if wanting to escape. Immediately, Tanya grabbed Kylie's hand and ran this confused. Clebius, unsure whether to chase them or check the direction of the explosion. It seems Anis is facing someone right now, although she's an outstanding student at the school, with talents recognized as a specialist in both practical and academic fields. Her opponent, this time, is certainly formidable. Although her combat abilities are only average, Anis remains a tough opponent for the first-year students. This highlights her strength and talent, even if she isn't the best in every field. But with this student, it's different. Joseph Whitefeld, who is entirely on another level. Unlike his sister, who needed Professor Glast's guidance to become a top student, Joseph is the youngest person to hold a researcher position at the Magic Association and can use intermediate-level magic. In short, Joseph is a genius, the top candidate for top student. Then he said, "No need to be angry. You surely have your own special area of expertise. It's just not suitable for combat." Anis denied what he said. "You're wrong. Yes, I'm annoyed, but not in the way you think, so just go." Hearing Anis's words, the boy moved forward, leaving her behind. Anis felt frustrated, despite trying to complete everything perfectly and without carelessness. Despite her best efforts, but breaking the magical device at the last minute made the situation even harder to manage. And so he guided everyone through the situation, never once showing anger, focusing solely on positivity. Yet she failed against the new student in her own territory. Though frustration simmered within her, what truly angered her was herself, as she couldn't shake the dependable image of him from her mind. At this moment, Joseph was face to face with Ed at the altar. Ed spoke up. "You know the test now, don't you? All you need to do is bring the power stone to the altar. But of course, I won't make it easy for you." But Joseph found this test strange as well. "So if I manage to restrain you, then I pass the test," he asked. "Exactly," came the reply, simple as that, right? Joseph actually wasn't paying much attention to these details. He asked Ed just to buy himself a bit more time to grasp the situation at hand. After assessing the situation, Joseph began channeling his magical energy to start the battle with Ed. He was only focused on finishing the fight quickly and deciding what to have for lunch. And with that, he cast an explosion spell directly toward Ed. But Ed managed to dodge it, making Joseph reconsider. It seemed that he had quite a lot of battle experience. Then he relied on Ed's technique to anticipate the magic that Ed was about to use. It could either be ignition or scorch. And so Ed launched his ignition spell forward, just as Joseph had predicted. This surprised Joseph, as Ed's spell was larger than typical magic. However, at this moment, Joseph had managed to activate his defensive magic, which resisted most types of spells. The battle of wizards is often determined by each person's maximum mana. So if two individuals use the same amount of mana, the one with the higher maximum will definitely emerge as the victor. Joseph believes that Ed doesn't have much experience in combat when using magic, so when his mana runs out, it will be the moment. This battle comes to an end, but while Joseph was still deep in thought, Ed had already approached him, saying, "Hey, the magical barrier can block mana, but it can't stop physical impact." Ed then kneed him upward and aimed directly at his face. Even the mere impact felt incredibly powerful. Do you really think this is just a battle of mages? After taking Ed's hit, Joseph quickly retreated backward to maintain distance. "How can you walk through the flames?" Joseph exclaimed. "All right, I won't let my guard down anymore, senior." He then began to cast ice magic. At that moment, Ed unleashed his ignition spell and launched it directly at him. Seeing that Ed was still using that skill, Joseph quickly changed his strategy and began using his scorch ability, creating a wall of fire in front of him. But he didn't expect that Ed would walk straight through it, holding the knife that Joseph had crafted. Did he have fire resistance? Then, before Ed could stab forward, Joseph managed to activate his physical defense skill. At that moment, he was struggling to withstand Ed's thrust with his magical abilities, but surprisingly, he saw Ed hastily retreating, not understanding why. Then Ed had activated the explosion skill, inscribed on the dagger, which began to glow brightly. Then it exploded, causing Joseph to be thrown into the air by the force of the blast. Then he was pushed far away until he finally came to a stop after crashing into a tree. His body was now covered in wounds, but he still had no intention of giving up. When he looked at the knife in Ed's hand, he finally understood. It was spirit magic. Ed's fire resistance came from the abilities of that spirit. Who on earth was he? Then he spoke up. "All right, I give up." As he said this, he let the magic stone he had been holding drop from his hand. But it was all part of his plan of feigned surrender to catch Ed off guard. Then he used the ice spear spell to attack Ed. Ed thought he was no longer on guard and had crouched down to dodge it. In that moment, Joseph also stepped forward and swung a punch at him. Ed had no intention of dodging it. Although the punch landed, it was nothing to Ed. At that moment, in front of Joseph was the magic that Lucy had used to defeat Taylor, which could only be activated when a surprise attack approached the wielder. The surge of power swept across the ground, creating numerous impacts on the surface. Finally, Joseph was left in tatters, far worse than before, and he accepted his defeat. It seemed that Marilda's magic was simply beyond his endurance. "All right, you did well," Ed praised him while sitting back down in front of the altar. Joseph then asked for his name. "So what's your name?" Ed simply replied, "Ed Rothaler, second-year student." Then Ed asked Onyx to take care of our battered little buddy, saying, "Please look after him, Onyx." As for Zig and Elka, they were on their way back to their hometown. Zig asked, "So why did you join the magic faculty?" "Why you asked that?" Zig replied. "I see you're a top student. You could have joined the alchemy or combat faculties. It makes me uncomfortable that you gave up your advantage just for me." Zig replied casually, "Elka, I don't really care about being a top student. Plus, I can't be the top student in the combat faculty anyway, because the top student in the combat faculty is in our year. That's Clebius Nortondale." Ziggs praised him, while Clebius was busy choking on his food. At that moment, Clebius was half conscious and heard the voice of the girl beside him. "Is he okay? Was my holy magic too strong?" Meanwhile, Onyx urged the two of them to leave, saying, "Just let him handle this." Clebius could only groan before passing out. "What did I have done?" And so Tanya and Kylie finally arrived at the altar. They were surprised to find that the final guardian of the altar was her annoying older brother, who at that moment said, "Just give up." The Saintus Clarice, who held a high position in the Telos Church, prayed every day in the church. The nobility derived from unwavering faith has sustained her throughout her life. I believe that it originates from that belief. She must become as pure as a blank sheet of paper, Saintus Clarice always has two dreams. One is the dream that Archbishop Verdio has planted in her mind. The other dream is one that takes her to a completely unfamiliar place. Each time this dream appears, she encounters the image of a girl singing her own songs. The song takes her across a rice field in the capital of Chloe, the emerald grasslands of Foreign, where animals live peacefully, the trading city of Oldic in the land of knowledge Sylvania, and finally the Dresthia desert in the lawless city of Kohelton. This girl is a member of the Holy Fire, Adele. After leaving the order, she called herself the Romantic, although it was unclear how she moved from building to building. But when the world went to sleep, she always sang a song at Clarice's window. The dream Clarice dreamt at night was the outside world that her only friend whispered to her while looking at the stars. Do you know that a normal life studying making friends and falling in love can also contain a sense of nobility? That a hug from someone you like is even more valuable. And when Adele left the order and joined Sylvania, Clarice went to the places Adele spoke of in her dreams every night. She felt herself being tightly embraced by someone, that same person who roamed the lands that Adele had described to her. The journey was long yet in her dream. It felt fleeting, a bold imagination that she could ever conjure. At this moment, Verdio was advising her to always be cautious, not to reveal her identity, emphasizing that she must keep this artifact with her at all times. The Saintess was always protected by holy magic, so perhaps she would worry less. Clarice, noticing Kylie's appearance, spoke up. Who could possibly suspect someone completely different like this Verdio? Embracing the thought of naturally arriving at the academy without anyone noticing her. This made her feel a sense of fulfillment. No one bowed their heads before her, and no one knelt in front of her. At least in Sylvania, no one acted that way. Returning to the battle, Tanya was still surprised that the final guardian was her own brother. Hearing this, Clarice silently assessed the situation, wondering if this was Tanya's brother. "I'm sorry, but can you leave? If you still want to come here, then give it a try," Ed said, unleashing a gust of wind from his spirit magic. This made it difficult for Tanya and Clarice to stay grounded. They felt as if they might be blown away. So this is the power of the spirits. Even a current spirit master is considered skilled if they can control 5 to 6 intermediate spirits, but this is a high-level spirit, isn't it? At that moment, Clarice anxiously looked at Tanya, saying, "I think I'll give up." "Let's think rationally, Tanya. This is hard to deal with him." Meanwhile, Tanya's face had turned dark with worry. Then she gritted her teeth, recalling the memories she had endured. If she left here, it would mean nothing had changed from before. She still wouldn't be able to surpass Ed. Then she spoke up. "I don't know about you, but I won't give up with my position. I have to bear a corresponding responsibility and burden." Then she started to move forward, thinking to herself that someone like him couldn't have much mana to control a high-level spirit. This must be a bluff. All she needed to do was bring him down. But before she could get any closer, Marilda unleashed a gust of wind that blew both her and Clarice away, catching her by surprise. Impossible. What is happening? Could it really be a high-level spirit? After being blown away, the two landed on the ground. Tanya braced herself with her hands to maintain her balance while Clarice rolled over several times after hitting the ground. At this moment, Clarice noticed injuries on her body. Is that person really Tanya's brother? He was so different from the tiny image, the warm smile, and the elegant demeanor of Crepin. He was the complete opposite. As a member of the Rothaler family, he was undoubtedly a reckless person. Then Clarice recalled Tanya's words, feeling perplexed. Even I could feel it, despite not knowing anything outside of the Holy Imperial capital, and not being quick to catch on to things. The deep hatred that Tanya has towards him is too big. Then she made her resolution. "Tanya, go for the main body, like you had originally planned. I will play the role of the bait. It might sound a bit strange, but I won't die unless there's a special circumstance. You said he is a really bad person, right? And you are the first friend I made at Sylvania." At that moment, Tanya was surprised by her decision. Did she normally have this much bravery? But in the next moment, Tanya saw her charging forward with tears streaming down her face, causing her to reject what she had just thought. At this moment, Clarice had run closer to Ed. Seeing this, Marilda just sighed and raised her hand to strike forward. But unexpectedly, just before the attack could hit her, a protective barrier appeared to block it, causing Marilda to injure her hand. With this impact, Clarice was also sent flying out of Ed's range. Ed then spoke up. "Is that all you have?" At that moment, Tanya stepped up beside him, ready to cast her spell. "You thought I would give up." She gathered all her strength and unleashed her emit spell, aiming to blow Ed away. But unexpectedly, the target of her attack was not Ed. He had been slowly vanishing right before her eyes. She felt surprised, unable to comprehend what was happening. Had he really disappeared? Beneath the vanishing shadow of Ed lay the vision disc, indicating that he had used it to deceive Tanya at that moment. Immediately after, a flurry of arrows was shot toward her position. This took her by surprise even more, as he had never used a sword before. How could he know how to use a bow? Then Ed spoke up with a warning. "Stay still," that was a warning. At that moment, she felt her fighting spirit drain away as she looked at the person she had underestimated for so long, now surpassing her in every way. It was just like before. Nothing had changed since she was a child. She felt powerless, unable to do anything at all. Then Ed spoke. "You must have worked hard, so I'm sorry. There's a reason for this. I can't go easy on you just because we are related. If I did, you would have been more angry, don't you? But you're really amazing. You know, if it were me, I would have run away, even if it's just an illusion. You managed to overpower it in an instant. I'm seeing you differently, Tanya. You have that side to you too." At that moment, as Tanya listened to Ed's explanation, she realized that the Ed in front of her was a completely different person from the one she had known before. Thinking about this made her burst into tears. She didn't know why she had doubted him so much, only to have her emotions overflow in that moment. Seeing her start to cry, Ed felt a bit flustered. He wondered if she was crying like this because she didn't get into class A. Then Kylie rushed over to hug Tanya tightly, saying him don't come any closer. She then threatened him, saying, "Don't attack me recklessly. If you do, you'll get into trouble, so just stop." Unbeknownst to her, the competition had already ended, and Ed had no intention of harming them. Then Claire's group arrived to inform Ed, "The exam has ended. We need to clean up." Clarice was on the side, her eyes welling with tears as she felt a sense of relief that the exam had finally come to an end. But she suddenly realized that her hair was gradually returning to its original white color. Was the transformation spell fading? Could it be because of that moment? Then she remembered that when Ed's attack sent her flying, the pin on her chest had also been knocked away. This was the magical artifact that allowed her to transform into Kylie. Clarice began to panic as her identity was about to be revealed. She realized she wouldn't be able to attend Sylvania Academy normally anymore. Fortunately, at that moment, Mug found what Ed had asked for and placed it in his hands. Then he quickly handed it to her before she lost her transformation. "Be careful not to lose your thing, you high kid," Ed said, adjusting his words to avoid slipping up. Clarice, relieved to receive the item, could only express her gratitude. "Thank you for picking this up for me," she said, feeling a mix of appreciation and anxiety about her true identity being revealed. Ed quickly turned and left Clarice and Tanya behind, heading toward Professor Claire. And so the placement exam concluded, with Ed feeling a sense of accomplishment in aligning events with the intended storyline. Yet little did he realize his actions had inadvertently created a gap, an unforeseen flaw that lingered. In that distorted void under a sky as red as ruby-colored eyes, the gap lingered ominously, captured Ed's image because of a few remarks. "Just now he was definitely trying to speak formally to me." Claire said, "Ed looks tired, so let's let him rest first. We'll take care of the rest ourselves. Onyx, can you give Clebius a hand? I'm sure I'm on my way." At this moment, Onyx mutters to himself, thinking he saw someone on the tower just now, probably just a mistake. At this moment, our Ed is also lying in front of the tower to rest after the battle. There's a voice next to him. Even any pieces of art worth thousands could be interpreted differently and are subject to one's opinion, but seeing that sunset, there is no one that could think that it isn't beautiful. This made Ed wonder what she was talking about. Anyway, humans have a short life, but they never value every moment. And the one who's been speaking all this time is Marilda High-Rank Spirit. At this moment, she continues, "A flat and dry life is the worst curse a human can endure. You must know how to be moved and find meaning in ordinary things. If human life is like the 4 seasons, then an elf's life is probably an endless winter, a life without highs and lows." Hearing her talk so much, Ed finally understands why Jenica said Marilda talks a lot. After listening to her talk so much, Ed finally asks, "So what? I mean, try dating. There must be someone around you, a kind, lively, and close friend strong enough for you to lean on. Meeting such a person and developing yourself. Don't you think it would be beneficial emotionally?" Then she asked Mug beside her, "Am I wrong?" And Mug felt it was very true, while Ed just lay there watching them talk. Then Mug continued, "Marilda Salma's advice to the spirit is like the Bible. Why don't you try following her advice for once?" Hearing Mug suggest trying it made Marilda's face turn dark. Realizing he had misspoken, Mug quickly said goodbye and slipped away. At this moment, Ed thought about what he wanted to ask. "Jenica hasn't been feeling well lately. Do you know what's wrong?" Marilda responded teasingly. "Surprised you're so concerned about Jenica." He casually replied. "Isn't that obvious?" Marilda next to him simply explained. "If Jenica didn't want to say, how could she possibly tell you?" She reassured him, telling him not to worry. Jenica has to go through a winter, one she needs the experience to understand. As for Ed, he just needs to watch. She'll probably be okay when spring comes. "I must have used up quite a bit of your energy. It's time for me to go." Ed also admitted that maintaining the summoning of a high elf was too much for him right now, saying that she jumped on him and flew high towards the tower. While jumping, she said, "Don't you see the difference between my giant form and my small form now? It seems you're still a bit naive. You think you've borne all the magic power yourself. A spirit of my caliber doesn't just make a pact with one person." Hearing that, Ed glanced towards where she disappeared in front of the tower, hinting at the person she mentioned being up there. Ed began climbing, mulling over his thoughts. Clearly, he couldn't sustain summoning a high elf this long with just his own magic power. If not from him, then from whom? As he neared the top of the tower, he realized the only other person who had made a contract with Marilda besides him. It was none other than Lucy. "I don't think this is a good place to rest," Ed spoke up as he clearly saw the person sitting at the top of the tower. "I didn't come here to sleep. The hut is the best if I want to sleep." Then Ed asked again, "So why?" Lucy pondered for a moment and then said, "I just don't like being there when there's no one around. So I went on a walk." Ed silently watched her pondering. It's a shame that the end of her walk would be here at the altar of substitution, the final stage of Act 3. Saintus Clarice begins to suspect the Order after she realizes the darkness in the Holy City. The characters in the Academy also follow the Archbishop's orders without fully understanding the situation. Princess Phinia Lortel, Holy Knight in Cathedral City, and even the high-ranking staff of the Academy. Even the main character of the story, Taylor, joined in and formed a large team for this conquest. Toward one girl who is trying to protect Arkan Island following her master's final will. A renegade and non-believer, regardless of what she was called, she never complained and looked down on everyone with a firm gaze. She was awakened Lucy Merrill. She defeats all main character at Arkan Island with her powerful magic, and with that half of the raid party is defeated by herself. But every power has its limit, and when she ran out of magi, it was also the moment Taylor grasped his skills and delivered a decisive blow, inflicting a mortal wound on Lucy and defeating her there. And after the story was revealed, everyone understood why Lucy was trying to kill the god's apostles, so she wasn't a villain. But by then, it was too late. The misunderstanding stemming from their ignorance of Lucy's motives left everyone feeling frustrated and upset. Even so, perhaps due to her innate personality, or simply having no inclination to explain herself, Lucy didn't clarify anything to anyone. Of course, Ed had no intention of stopping her, but sacrificing her just to keep the plot on track. Of course, not our main character isn't that cold-blooded. Just letting things flow as they are now isn't such a bad ending after all. Lucy also needs to let go of her lingering emotions. It will be a long battle, and there will be dangerous moments, but those are things to face in. Act 3, Ed continues to ponder, while Lucy gradually leans on him. Then she started lying on Ed's lap, speaking. Recently, I realized that I actually feel quite lonely. He was about to say something, but held back. If there was anything to promise her, it would be to let her know. The next time he leaves the cabin for a long time. At this moment, Clara is smiling at someone holding a gift box in her hand, warmly saying, "This is a gift from Belle. If Anis comes from a noble family, then Clara comes from a renowned noble family." Belle also thanks Clara, while Clara feels quite comfortable returning to school at this moment. It's been a while since I've seen Jenica and Anis, so I miss them a bit. I'll go ahead. It's so exciting to see them after so long. Then she said goodbye to Belle, who hardly moved at all. Belle's face was now full of sweat, trembling. It could only be because their meeting would lead to conflict, making her afraid. Returning to Ed, he's now tying ropes to chain wooden planks together, creating wind-blocking wooden walls. However, making such items no longer advances his skills. Then he heard a voice behind him. Preparing thoroughly for the upcoming storm is the right thing to do. It's good to see you're still well, young Master Ed. It was Belle. She came to take Lucy back to the academy, as the academy had now decided. During the snowstorm, leaving the dormitory is strictly prohibited. And because Lucy has a high chance of escaping from the Theophilus Hall, they demanded tighter supervision of her. At this moment, Lucy could only signal to Ed, asking for his help. Hearing that, Ed put on a face that showed he understood everything. Belle coughed a few times to remind him how to respond correctly. And of course, our Ed remained calm. "I will continue to use formal speech with you." This made Belle angry. Then she continued, not paying attention. "Can you survive the snowstorm this week, young master?" "Ed, this might be just my opinion, but I don't think those walls will hold up enough." Ed calmly replied, "I'm just using it to protect my supplies." At this point, his house had been reinforced, with many ropes wrapped around each other tied to a ground anchor. Ed had also collected all the hunting tools traps and placed them inside the cabin by now. All that's left for him now is to focus on magic engineering research at the Spirit Library throughout the snowstorm week. Then he reassured Belle. "I have another place I will stay at, so don't worry." Seeing Belle a bit worried, he continued, "This must be your first time handling a snowstorm as the head maid." But contrary to what he thought, she said, "Actually, I'm worried about you. But maybe I shouldn't interfere too much." This made Ed a bit concerned. "Anyway, I hope you will be fine." At this moment outside, the sky is unusually blue and peaceful. In contrast, where the three of them were, two blazing fires erupted, causing Clara to break into a sweat. At this moment, she was full of worry. "What's going on? Are they arguing? What should I do now?" Then Clara was about to speak first, but before she could call out, Jenica spoke first. "Hey." Anis was startled when Jenica called her name. "You got a hug from Ed," Jenica said with a face full of emotion, unable to believe it actually happened. Meanwhile, Anis was bewildered, unsure how to face Jenica. Then Clara tried to explain for her. "I think there might be some misunderstanding. There's no way Anis would do that." But before Clara could finish, Anis admitted, "Yes, actually I did seduce Ed." Hearing this made Clara scream in shock. "Sorry, Jenica, I didn't trust him at all. He looked like a player, so I just wanted to test him." "What, you're not lying for real?" Jenica wondered when she saw Anis deny having feelings for Ed. "He's not my type, so don't worry, Jenica. He looks like a thug. He's arrogant about everything, and he lives completely selfishly. Why would I want someone like that?" "Anis, you're going too far. You don't really know anything about Ed." The two girls were arguing, fiercely staring each other down. Clara could only stand by and watch how everything unfolded. Then, Anis apologized to her first for acting without consulting Jenica. At this moment, Jenica started crying even more. She hadn't been able to sleep, feeling betrayed by her close friend. Yet she knew she had no right to feel that way because she and Ed were nothing more than friends. Anis comforted Jenica. "At least for Ed, you're someone special. You've surpassed just being friends, but aren't quite lovers yet. You need to try harder." Jenica's face was now streaming with tears. "Well, to be honest, judging Ed that way wasn't right. But you did it for me, so I can't be mad about it. Anyway, you don't like Ed, right?" "Thanks for being honest with me," Clara sighed. I was worried that Anis was really attracted to Ed. But she was mistaken after seeing Anis's face now. Anis's face was turning red, and it's pretty clear why that is. Clara quickly signaled to Jenica about Ed. "It's been a while since you've been to the Northern Forest, hasn't it? You should go there quickly." Then, Jenica quickly ran off, leaving Clara and Anis with somber expressions. Then Annie spoke up. "Introduce me to a guy. Now let's break social norms. Do you want to date me, Clara?" After hearing that, Clara felt helpless, not quite understanding what her friend had just said. Meanwhile, Anis kept shaking her, trying to bring her back to reality. "I feel guilty about Jenica, but maybe when we're not close, the feelings will fade. After the break ends, the Academy Scholarship student work will also end, so everything will be resolved." But unfortunately for her, Claire just announced some shocking news that left her completely stunned. Academy Scholarship students will continue doing the student assistant job. Everyone did very well in the recent test, especially Ed, and as a student assistant, they can receive additional scholarships. Compared to other places, the environment here is quite good. Since we're already familiar with each other, let's keep striving. Together, Claire's words made Anis's face darken, as if she had fallen into hell. Jenica arrived at Ed's camp. "Seems you're okay now," Ed spoke up first. "Last time you were here, you seemed a bit upset." She pretended. Which time was that I don't remember. While her face turned completely red, Ed didn't mind, just smiled. He was sure that with Jenica by his side, he could relax a bit, because Jenica was no longer part of the plot and was his only friend. At this moment, she wondered, "I know you've made a pact with Marilda, but it's so strange. Ed doesn't have enough mana to control a high-level spirit." Then he began to tell her everything. He told her about Professor Glast's ring, how he gained his powers, and his future plans. "So Ed can't use magic now, can he? It will be hard for him to make a pact with a mid-level spirit at this moment." "It's okay. By the time the semester starts, my mana will return," Jenica cheerfully said to him. "Congratulations, Ed. Spirit mages often call the day they make a pact with a high-level spirit their second birthday." At this moment, Ed asked her, "The student council president election is coming up, right? You'll probably have many nominations." Jenica became flustered when Ed brought up the subject. Everyone had been asking her about it, but she knew nothing and intended to stay neutral. Then she suddenly remembered something and was startled. "By the way, Ed, your sister, is also running for the election, right?" "Yeah, that's right. She's quite ambitious." At this moment, Jenica's face was full of worry. "So are you close with your sister? I guess you could say that." "In theory, we're family, but it seems like she pretty much hates me. Still, I want to get along. I just need to focus on what she needs." Hearing Ed, Jenica began to sob. "Does Tanya like anything and a gift or favorite dish maybe?" Hearing Jenica's words, he had a hunch. "Did you do something to Tanya?" "Nothing at all." Seeing Jenica's state, Ed realized that she was terrible at lying. She had confessed with a guilty look. Meanwhile, Ed didn't see the situation as serious and smiled. The afternoon passed, and now it's evening at Awfulus Hall with snow starting to fall heavily. At this moment, Kylie is holding her pen, but in reality, this is Clarice, trying to remember Ed's demeanor, who inadvertently spoke formally to her, leaving an indelible impression. Perhaps she was mistaken, but his last words always lingered in her mind. Did that person know her secret? She had worked hard to live a normal life under the condition of not revealing her identity at the academy. She also recalled the conversation with Joseph. "Act like you're so great, but you didn't even get close to the altar." "Shut up, I was just caught off guard. Besides, you didn't get into Class A either." That person, Senior Ed, is really not an ordinary person. He's quite famous in the third year, and I've heard he's living in a hut in the Northern Forest. Having made her decision, once the snowstorm starts, I can't leave Awfulus Hall for at least a week, and when it ends, spring will have arrived. By then, the new semester will start, so I will lose the chance to keep him quiet. Then she opened her room's window letting the snowstorm's wind blow snow into the silent room. She was truly afraid of Ed Roth Taylor, of the darkness, and of this freezing snowstorm. But she couldn't stop here. The life she dreamed of awaited her. Then she jumped out of her room's window. Then she harnessed the power of the pin, and it started to glow. Then it transformed her into Kylie. She couldn't let something she had worked so hard for slip away like this. With this thought, she started rushing toward Ed's hut in the forest amidst the snowstorm. The memories that seemed forgotten were the ones he remembered the most vividly. When everyone in the Nortondale family turned their backs on him, only his brother stood by his side. The memory of Clebius stabbing his brother in the chest is probably something he can never forget. Maybe he would resent him, maybe curse him. But Clebius couldn't remember what his brother's last words were. "Why you want to leave, Professor Claire?" asked Clebius. "No, it's just that I feel like I can't do anything to help, and I got defeated back then. So I feel like I don't deserve this treatment." "Really? I thought you might be dissatisfied or have been invited by someone else. Then just try staying a bit longer here. You might end up liking it." At this moment, Clebius could only purse his lips and agree. "All right." At this moment, in front of the tree, with the rope tied around it, were Lucy and Ed. Had come before the outside was still enduring the long, relentless snowstorm. At this moment, Ed arrived at the spirit library. His goal was nothing other than to improve his magic skills. Earlier, Ed had asked Zig to help clean up, but didn't expect him to organize even the messiest things. Seeing everything neatly organized by topic made him feel a bit in awe. It seems Zig invited Elka to help as well. Elka loves books, so this probably feels like a practice run for her. All right, let's get started. Ed's goal is to obtain Glock's eye and Delheim's hourglass. These legendary items can greatly aid him in improving his crafting skills, as well as help him avoid injury with the hourglass. But the way to create them is from lower-level items. So what he needs to do now is to enhance his magic engineering skills. And to execute it, he already has all the necessary materials. The remaining task is to use the tools to... He reached into his pocket but couldn't find them. Ed had forgotten to put his tools in his pocket. He had forgotten something equally important. So looking downcast, Ed had no choice but to trudge back to his hut in the snowstorm. At this moment, our Saintus is also braving the raging snowstorm. I wonder how she manages to endure this weather while wearing a dress. Oh, the river. They said that just crossing this river would mean they're almost there. She felt elated seeing that the destination was near. With an excited expression, her eyes even showing heart shapes. Thrilled to experience the adventure of a snowstorm for the first time. After a while, she arrived at Ed's hut, which was almost entirely covered in snow. Despite feeling a bit afraid to face Ed, she reminded herself that she couldn't give up now. At this moment, she looked into Ed's house, scanning his room, but the darkness made it impossible for her to see inside. Then she opened the door to enter, but found it stuck on something. She applied more force, causing the bucket of red water to spill onto the wooden floor. And at that moment, she finally noticed something strange around her. And in Ed's room, a wild boar was hanging on the wall. This made Clarice panic and scream out loud. Then she felt scared. All of this is this hell. Suddenly, there were footsteps approaching the house. This made her anxious. At this moment, a hooded figure approached the hut. It could be Ed. After entering and seeing the messy room, he didn't say a word. He quietly walked straight in while Clarice was hiding under the table right next to where Ed was standing. At this moment, he seemed to be searching for something, accidentally dropping a hunting trap onto the ground made. Clarice burst into tears, but she covered her mouth to stay silent. Ed seemed to be searching for something. After rummaging for a while, he held a sharp object in his hand. That made Clarice so frightened that she made a noise. As if sensing someone, the figure started looking around to see where the noise came from. Then he looked under the table holding the knife and asked, "Who are you?" This scene feels straight out of a horror movie. Not giving Ed a chance to react, Clarice launched an attack at him, sending him flying with the holy energy she created. Then he passed out due to the Saintus' power and slumped against the wooden wall. Then our Saintus knelt on the floor praying. "I didn't mean to kill a person. Dear Tellus, I have gravely sinned. I who was supposed to live a life of purity I have been stained with sin. I must burn in the depths of hell to atone for. But not allowing her prayer to be completed, Ed placed his hand on her shoulder. He growled, "Are you kidding me?" This scared Clarice even more, making her think a corpse had come back to life. Then she felt like her soul was leaving her body, foaming at the mouth, and fainted. Seeing this scene, Ed trembled with anger, biting his lip to endure it. At this moment, Belle was being briefed by another maid about the storm. "I already know the situation, but now we must allocate our personnel effectively." The truth is, Belle knew Kylie's real identity. This was what the Order wanted. The heads of the Academy had to know about this. The Saintus being in danger during the snowstorm could cause a national uproar. However, Belle remained calm in this moment. With the blessing of holy magic, Belle believed she didn't need to worry much about the dangers Clarice might face. She realized that the best way to handle the situation was to deal with it quietly. "All right, I will go look for Lady Kylie myself. You handle the rest at the Academy, especially Lady Lucy." The maid continued, and Chief Maid, according to those who saw her, Lady Kylie headed towards the northern forest. This surprised Belle. "Why that place?" "That's his place, the man who strangely attracts women." The snowstorm raged outside, leaving just two people in the room. In this harsh circumstance, they had to rely on each other. The two of them, while Belle's imagination ran wild. "But I like it that way." At this moment, Belle decided to quickly head towards Ed's hut, fearing that the Saintus might be in danger according to her imagination. Ed Roth Taylor is a man of few expressions, constantly battling the harsh conditions of the northern forest. This rumor has circulated around the Academy, and Belle is the one who truly understands why he had to do it. At this moment, Belle reached Ed's hut. It seemed she was in such a hurry that she used magic to light her way instead of bringing a lantern. Contrary to his cold appearance, Ed Roth Taylor is very approachable and always cares about others. Despite many talented girls approaching him, he remains serious about everything. Truly a reliable person. The thought of their relationship evolving gave Belle a headache. Young Master Ed probably doesn't know Lady Kylie's true identity, does he? At this moment, seeing Belle arrive, Ed greeted her. "You've arrived, Belle." Meanwhile, our Saintus was being punished, holding a chair in her hand, sitting in a corner of the room. Seeing this situation, Belle became confused. "Young Master Ed, could you explain to me what's happening?" The snow continued to fall outside, indicating they might have to spend a significant amount of time there. After Ed's explanation, Belle spoke up. "The snowstorm is getting worse, so I should take Lady Kylie back soon." Ed agreed with her. "All right, it's not good for the head maid to be away from Awfulus Hall for too long." Then he looked at Clarice beside him, seemingly understanding why the Saintus had come all this way. As he handed back the pin to her, his demeanor seemed unnatural, causing her to feel suspicious. Her true identity was supposed to be revealed at the end of Act 3 as a key highlight. But if it gets exposed early, it will be troublesome. "She's already suspicious of me." He thought for a moment, then spoke. "I apologize for my disrespectful actions." "Saintus, you can put that chair down now." "Oh, yes, thank you." She thanked him without feeling that anything was odd. Then both Belle and Clarice were shocked by what he had just called her. "What Saintus?" "So you already knew young Master Ed," he explained. "I also received the baptism at the Telos congregation. Normally, when you see that illusion break so close, it's easy to recognize. But first put that chair down, Saintus." "Yes." Ed looked at Clarice. From Ed's perspective, he always avoided getting involved with the main characters in the script. But if left unchecked, Saintus Clarice might act impulsively again. Therefore, the reason he decided to let her know that he knew her identity was the best solution. Seeing how she hides her identity and blends in with everyone. Perhaps life in the church made her feel stifled. "I completely understand that feeling," Clarice said, and hearing him, she smiled because someone finally understood her. But not letting her continue enjoying her happiness, he continued, "When you see the free life in the forest, what do you think? Can you guess how I'm living?" Clarice then examined Ed's house. His life was not living freely, but more like surviving. Everything has light and darkness, and freedom is no exception. If Adele were a poet praising the beauty of freedom, then Ed surely represents the dark side of freedom. Then Ed stood up and continued. Sorry for being disrespectful to you in this way. It's just unfortunate that there's no one around the Saintus to discuss these matters with, so I'll push the boundaries a bit. Please return, he said. This was likely Ed's plea to her. Clarice and Belle left Ed's hut. Clarice spoke first. I'm sorry for making you come all this way. Belle didn't mind much. No need to worry, I'm just doing my duty. Clarice's mind was filled with thoughts. When we return to Awfulest Hall, we'll enjoy delicious soup in the warm room, she told herself. The small hut amidst the snowstorm offered no such grandeur. Inside, the scent of animal blood lingered, and the harsh reality was far from any comforting illusion grounding them in the cold, unforgiving truth of survival. No one could have imagined that behind his image, the man who blocked all the freshmen in that competition lived such a life. This shattered the illusion of freedom she once dreamed of. It was truly heartbreaking. But at least she still felt certain about one thing. Leaving the sanctuary and coming to Sylvania to seek freedom was the right decision. Because now she had met a venerable senior. Thinking about it made her blush without knowing why she felt that way. At this moment, Belle stopped when she noticed Clarice was no longer moving, seeing the expression on the Saintus's face. She suddenly had a bad feeling. Why does the Saintus have that expression? Belle could only break out in a cold sweat, thinking about what she didn't want to think about. There's no way it can happen, but why she thought that perhaps our maid. Belle would have to endure a sleepless night tossing and turning. Spring had arrived. It often comes unnoticed, which makes it all the more special at this moment at Laplace Bakery. Ed sat with Lortel looking awkward. Is this a place you can't get into without a reservation? He asked her. She just smiled and replied, I dropped by for work, so it's fine. It might take a little time. The bakery owner was also respectful towards her. Yes, please make yourself at home. If you need anything, just let me know. From his expression, it seemed Lortel had done something. Then she admitted to Ed. Using exclusive power at times like this is quite fun, isn't it? It can create special privileges, Ed, watching the bakery owner, said. Look at his face. You're the only one enjoying this. Oh, your words hurt me, she said, while sipping her tea. Even if it's true, I never bully others without a reason. You might already know, but this snowstorm has caused difficulties in supplying goods in. Arkin Laplace Bakery had previously ordered a lot of unnecessary things, but when the delivery day was near, they canceled everything. Oh, were they fake orders? I can understand that food ingredients are scarce, but monopolizing supplies like this is unacceptable. Business ethics are essential. At this moment, the bakery owner knelt beside her. Miss Lortel, I was wrong. Please stop the restrictions on my shop. These order limitations will affect the bakery's business. But she paid no attention to his words and continued chatting with Ed, smiling. I have classes this afternoon. Do you want to come with me to the faculty area? Ed could only look at Lortel and say, You're so cold-hearted. And so they reached the academy. I really didn't want to do that. But the snowstorm cut off distribution from the main office, so the budget is quite depleted. Ed calmly asked, You're also having financial difficulties. Things must not be going well. She denied his statement. What are you talking about? Who do you think I am? Managing money is my specialty. As long as I don't spend on unnecessary things, I will be fine. Then she asked him, Why don't you bring your books to class? He unfazed replied, Oh, I have to stop by the library to borrow them. Consider it exercise. She was surprised. Isn't it just a few coins to buy? Then she reconsidered. That amount isn't small for students. Sylvania's books are all premium. Thinking about this, Lortel looked at her money pouch, ready to open it. She was probably planning to buy it for Ed. This makes me wish I could be sponsored by a wealthy benefactor too. How much do we need? Then Ed didn't worry about it, only saying, I appreciate your concern, but it's not necessary. As they continued towards the academy chatting, Lortel brought up, speaking of which, the student council president election is coming up soon. Are you planning to run, Ed? I could be your assistant. Ed showed no interest, replying, I don't plan on running, and there's no guarantee. I'd win anyway. That's a shame, she said. What about your sister? Tanya, huh? Lord Tell also nodded. Yeah, I'd rather die than support Princess Phinia. But needless to say, Tanya can hardly match the princess. Even as a member of the Roth-Taylor family, the difference is still too big. At this moment, Ed fell into deep thought. Lord Tell's assessment was spot on. If things continued as they were, Princess Phinia would become the student council president. And Tanya Roth-Taylor, despite using every possible method and deploying various schemes to secure each vote, the vote gap never narrowed. In the end, Tanya was just a failure and left out. Lord Tell suddenly blocked Ed's path, surprising him. Are you going to support Princess Phinia, me? Not sure. If I had to choose, I'd support Tanya. Hearing him, Lord Tell blushed. That's a relief. Most people admire Princess Phinia, so I was worried you'd feel the same. Then she leaned her head on Ed's chest. You know that I have feelings for you, right? I almost got jealous, Lord Tell said, looking enchantingly at our Ed. But I'm already enchanted. Her eyes shone with love as she gazed at him while Ed remained motionless. Then she pressed her head against his chest again. Is it working? Let me check your heartbeat. As if not letting her continue her antics, Ed began to push her away with a calm expression. Lord Tell was slightly disappointed. Why are you always so calm? Why doesn't it work? Then he explained. It's not that there's nothing, but until graduation, there's still a lot to resolve. Lord Tell pondered for a moment. Until the day you graduate, so what happens after graduation? Ed silently patted her head, and Lord Tell was enjoying it. She spoke up first. Oh, it seems like I've caught on to something big, although I don't understand why you said it will end at graduation. We still have 2 years anyway. But you have to see if you can resist my charm first, Lord Tell playfully teased Ed. Ed began to ponder the upcoming events. Graduating safely was not an easy goal. In the end, Taylor will have to face the final boss. Only by defeating the final boss can this world find peace again. And at that moment, everyone will be able to graduate safely, especially with the support of Clarice, the symbol of the order, and Phinia, the symbol of the royal family. Only then can Taylor finally defeat the final boss, Dragon Tyrant, in other words. Taylor must develop according to the script and gather all his allies. The class assignments for the new student have gone according to plan. Fortunately, Clarice has managed to keep her identity hidden, allowing her to continue her studies as usual. Although it's unfortunate for Tanya, her failure is inevitable. Princess Phinia will become the student council president, and the script that deviated will return to its proper course. At this moment, Ed felt relieved, as he was no longer entangled in the main character's story. However, contrary to Ed's expectations, our princess showed signs he never anticipated. At this moment, in Phinia's room, for some unknown reason, she no longer held her usual confidence or aloofness. A sad expression appeared on her face along with the decision she made. I will not run for the election. And with that, all the plans began to collapse.